Welcome, everybody, to our August 22nd special meeting at City Hall. It's our final budget workshop, we think?
Yes.
Okay, final budget workshop. We'll call this meeting to order. First order of business is the city manager opening remarks.
Yes. Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, staff, visitors. This is, hopefully, our final budget workshop. Thank you very much, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, for accommodating this special workshop. I was thinking this morning, I don't think that we've ever had to extend, workshops or had to call a special workshop, but we do have some things we need to address this morning. Some other items we need to address as follow-up from our last budget workshop. And I think, I was comparing last year's budget adoption to this year, and I shared with one of you during our a brief meeting yesterday that I think that this has been a very difficult year as far as developing and drafting the budget. And the reason for that is, compared to last year when we had ARPA funding, we still have that ARPA funding, but now we are implementing that American Rescue Plan Act funding. And so last year was a good idea to make our list and to designate our projects, and this year is the year now that we are, the pedal's meeting the metal, so to speak. And so, I was thinking about the Board of Finance's comment during our last budget workshop that there's a lot of spending going on, and that's true. There is a lot of spending going on, and that's primarily because of the American Rescue Plan Act funding that we have. It's enabled a lot of these projects, and so we're going to be talking about that quite a bit this morning. I'm sorry? And it's deadline. Yes, and it's deadline. There's a time in which we must expend these funds, and so...
Which means now.
Yes, yes. So I think we're going to have a really good morning, a lot of really good discussion. I just want to really briefly run over the agenda, if I may, Mayor. We're going to do an update on the 4 main capital projects, and I want to be very clear that staff's recommendation is to fund a portion or the entirety of these 4 main projects. Les is going to go over that spend plan. We didn't state on the cover sheet exactly what the recommendation is. I assumed it would be inherent in the fact that it's on your agenda as 4 main projects, and we aren't offering no alternatives or other options, if you will. We've looked at those already. And so, as I said, Les will walk us through that. We're going to talk about the recommended new positions. We did the organizational study, we did the class and comp study that you gave us consensus direction to move forward with in the last City Commission meeting. We are implementing that now, and then the last component of that is recommended new positions. So I'm sure we're going to have a good discussion on that. We do have we want to talk a little bit about the cable issue, if you will. We are recommending that we fund cable for the next 3 years. And so one other follow-up item, I can't remember what it was, but anyway. Oh, the lobbyist. We do have information regarding the lobbyist for all of you as well. So if we do run into lunch, we have a plan to feed all of you so you don't get hangry. And hopefully we won't have to do that. So thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, Les.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Les Tyler, the Finance Director, and I'm here with Ashley Kimpton, our Budget Manager. And we'd like to start with going through the 4 large main capital projects section of the agenda. And I want to briefly go over the projects. Again, we've got the Skinner Boulevard Improvements Project, the Midtown Parking Facility Project, the Highlander Aquatic Complex phased without the lazy river, and the slides will be added as an add alternate during the bid process. Want to make sure I mention that. And the Dunedin Golf Course Club Restoration Project. These are the updated capital costs for each of the 4 projects, and I'll go from left to right and make a few comments on each of them. Skinner Boulevard Improvements is budgeted at $11,019,000 with various funding sources, and this includes the most recent updated cost information from Duke Energy and other jurisdictions too, so we feel like we have the most current numbers here. This did not change much. It changed a little bit from our original budget, but we've updated some of the different line items in the costing. The Midtown Parking Facility is budgeted at $8,772,000. This has increased since our June 1st workshop number 1, where we walked through these projects. Staff has increased the cost for construction management for this project, and we increased it by $630,000 to get to the $8.772 million. And that increase was added to the CRA fund, we'll walk through in a few minutes. The Highlander Aquatic Complex project is budgeted at $11.751 million, which is more than amount previously discussed on June 1st. Staff also increased this project by $505,000 for construction management costs. The golf club restoration project is consistent with the prior amount at $4.5 million. So the total estimated cost for all 4 projects is just over $36 million. That's the bottom number on the far right. Are there any questions on the project cost at all?
Yeah.
Well, just, oh, sorry, go ahead, Brian.
On the Skinner Complete Street, for the funding sources, which are those of the grants that we've already received?
We've got a grant on the project of $744,000 that we'll be receiving from FDOT, and then we've also got other funding sources from Forward Pinellas as well for design and construction both.
And on the FDOT grant, what are the terms of that?
I'm going to turn over to Bob for that item.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioner. Bob Ironsmith, Economic Development. We got actually about $3.5 million in funding coming in completely for Skinner. As a result of $1 million through Forward Pinellas, $1 million through DOT, $744,000 safety grant, and what was the other one I had in there? There's one more. But it all totals to about $3.5 million worth of leverage onto Skinner. As far as the safety grant, it's just a direct. There is no really match type aspect other than we're doing, portions of the project. So there's no, it's just an out-and-out grant for those. And DOT is very excited and very motivated about this project. My sense is that, I'm sorry, Mayor, my sense is they're going to use this as an example elsewhere in the state of Florida.
Can I interject something? I don't know if we've already sent it, but we're in the process of sending a letter requesting actually more funding from FDOT, or not FDOT, Forward Pinellas. Mm-hmm. When they did this grant program that they've done with a number of cities in Pinellas County, it was created in like 2015 and 16, pre-pandemic, and costs were at a different level. And so their offer of grants were based on where the world was at that time. Whit has said to me that there could be an opportunity, given where we are today in 2023 and the cost of, doing this kind of a project is increased so exponentially that we might be able to get a little bit more money. Did we send the letter already?
No, there's no letter at this point in time.
It was drafted. I need to double check.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was in George's shop, so let me double check on that.
Okay.
But
Thank
yeah,
you.
Mayor, as you said, the state's recognizing increased inflationary
Yeah.
costs, both
I-
housing and
Yeah, and I
infrastructure.
I can't imagine we'd get a lot, but it might be, 500,000 or something.
Yeah,
They just stepped up another $1
That's a
million.
guess. That's just a best guess. But we did ask verbally. Now we're going to do it in writing.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh, no,
interrupt
no,
you.
no, thank you.
Okay.
So basically, a little over half of this is funded by us, of the 11 million. The rest is by others that we lost if we didn't do it now.
Yeah, absolutely. DOT has been very direct with us. Don't change the timetable. Don't try to value this. We really believe in this project. We're bringing in a lot of money. Want to make it happen. And they've been very strong with us, frankly. Very
And
excited
don't
about
change the
project.
design, too, I think they've said.
Yeah, we looked at it, and they said, no, that'll, verbatim, that will leave a black mark on the district. We do not want to do that. That's verbatim, yeah.
Can I ask what the basis is for bringing in a lot of money? What's the, they're saying that this will bring in a lot of money, are you talking about funding sources?
No, I'm sorry, Commissioner, I'm talking about they're bringing in $3.5 million toward the project.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no. We think it's an economic stimulus with what's going to occur in the area like we've seen downtown, but no. So they're bringing almost, a little bit like a third of the project as far as funding.
Okay.
I think you already see investment on Skinner because of it, but.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's already starting to happen, so.
Yeah, it is, Commissioner. You're seeing 2 projects already started.
Private investment.
It's
yeah.
private property. 2 have already started work. One on the corner of Highland and one on the north corner, and then one on Douglas on the north corner. So you're already seeing 2 started.
And one of them isn't it surprisingly a brewery?
Yes.
I know. I
One-
was like, really?
Yes, one will be Norton's Brewery, and the other one will be
Wait, Norton's Brewery?
Norton's Brewery, is my understanding.
Affiliated with Norton's Sports Bar?
No affiliated with the former CEO
Jack owns
for
the
Meats
property.
Material, Jack Norton. Yeah, Jack
Oh,
Norton owns the
gotcha,
property.
okay, gotcha.
And then the other one will be an office and a couple apartments. So, yeah, you're already seeing it start.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what we were looking forward to. And DOT, I got to tell you, they've been outstanding, tremendously responsive. Really want to move this thing ahead. I can't say more good things about DOT on this project.
So just one comment. I mean, I know that the traffic light has been tremendously successful at the trail. But it's going to be interesting to see if there's backups happening because of the proximity of the roundabout and the
Right.
light. Because I know we always thought that would solve the problem without a light. But, I mean, the ultimate safety feature is a light. So I guess we'll see. They tell me they think they can control the timing of the light, so that'll work, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, no, I know you asked that question, Commissioner. We did too. Obviously, it's DOT's road, and they're comfortable with the queuing and the safety and having a signal at the trail, so.
Well, honestly, I mean, in my
Best thing we
view,
ever did?
well, I'm not going to judge them, but I think at this point, you're afraid to not leave it there because
Yeah.
it's been so successful, and I get that.
Yeah.
Because, and I talk to people, and they feel a lot of comfort in that. So I think it's a good way to start and see how it evolves, so, thanks.
Understand?
Yes, I have a couple concerns about the capital projects. And I don't think any of them are necessarily going to require any
Oh,
of your
okay.
input, Bob,
Thank you, Vice Chair.
if you want to relax. But if you wish to stay,
Let's focus on questions. I just want to tell everybody
Yep.
so that we can give the public a chance to speak.
yes.
Okay.
So we have Duke Energy in here still for the 1.5. And because of my concern about the level of borrowing that we're doing, I'm still concerned about that. That's the undergrounding of the electric for that short stretch. And so if we're looking for money, there's an opportunity there. Another concern that I have is that I just want to remember that I bring this up later, that we talk about the Dunedin Golf Club restoration, and then we have a separate fund for money that's going to be allocated towards, or at least it's planned now, it went from $600,000 to $300,000 for the clubhouse restoration. So those words, we want to make sure we keep those together and we understand what's happening with that. I would like to see, we're putting a lot of money in the golf club, and I've talked to enough people, and they seem to be pleasantly pleased with the clubhouse. And so that's another $300,000 that's coming out of another fund. It's not addressed here. Just want to remember that we have that somewhere in there, and I'm going to call that a question to that at that point in time as well. The total of this, then, from the sense of borrowing, are you talking about the timing of these 4? Are you talking about for example, the parking facility, when that begins, and are we bringing that up yet?
We'll be walking through all the long-range plans in a few minutes, and we'll sort of walk through, the timing and costing of the projects there.
Okay.
Yeah, Jennifer just walked away, but I did ask her the same question yesterday, and what she told me was that would be a separate fall meeting to talk about the timing. That they just need to get the projects actually approved, and that that the staff and her have been meeting, trying to figure out how do they do it and manage it, and
Please,
meet the
yes.
ARPA, and so she said that she would, that's what she told me, but she just, I think she's using the ladies' room, so.
So I consider, and we have a fantastic financial package group here for everything that happens within the city, and I'm very comfortable with that. And I'm really just talking about the level of financing that's required. And of course, they're not going to stand up and say no unless it's absolutely threatening. And we know that we've had some concerns from the Board of Finance about what's going on here. So I just wanted to point out those couple sums of money that are in here, and then some of the potentiality for delay, but you don't want to start spending money on it. Thank you.
Any questions, Commissioner Gao?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, actually, as we're talking about these, and this might be more for you or for Jennifer, but just guidance, are we talking about all these 4 projects right now just in a generality, or is this an opportunity to dig into each individual one?
Just generality.
Just-
We're gonna,
we will
that we're
address these-
approving the project, not the details of the project, but the project, based on the funding we're seeing here and our ability to fund them. Jennifer, what you missed is.
Sorry.
That's okay. Vice Mayor had asked a question earlier about the timing of the projects, and since you walked away, I said that you and I had discussed it yesterday because I asked if this was the appropriate place to bring it up, and you said you would come back in the fall
Yes.
sometime, and because you're still working through, A, just managing 4 major projects.
Right.
And B, timing it with ARPA, and there's all these different sort of factors, and that you were going to come back and kind of lay it out on how it would all, when you're going to go out to RFP and all of that. And then Commissioner Gao asked,
Boy, I missed a lot, didn't I?
if it was time to get
Timing
into,
was horrible.
if it was time to get into the details of the project, I started to say, no, that we're giving direction on the project itself and how we're funding it and the cost, and that you would bring back the details
Correct.
later. But
Correct.
I'm not exactly sure which part of the details you want, so I don't want to stop you from asking a question.
Right.
But we're not going down into each 4.
Well, yeah, I guess, because some of my questions are like on the pool, if there could be discussion on whether or not, right now, the slides are an ad alternate. Should there be an ad alternate, or should they be part of the design? I've got an opinion on that. Is that the time to talk about it? Certainly, my opinion on the garage is kind of already known and out there. Is this the time to discuss that, or is there going to be time later in the day? If we say yes to this and move on, all of a sudden, have I just approved these 4 projects, and that was not my intent? Without discussion, is my question. So will we be discussing these individual projects somewhere else in the meeting?
Well, not today, right?
Well, we've discussed all the projects individually in the past. So we saw conceptual design for the garage. We've seen a conceptual design for the pool, the golf course as well. And Skinner, we've seen a lot of designs for Skinner's. So we can get into some of the details. I mean, talking about whether to bid it as an ad alternate or not, we can certainly talk about. It's important to the total cost of the project. As far as what particulars you'd like to know about those projects, we can certainly discuss. I don't have any conceptual design slides for you today.
Well, and on your behalf, Commissioner Gao, because we've been talking about these projects in generalities for, 4 or 5 months now, right, over the budget thing, I think everybody's vision of them has evolved over time. So even though we talked about them 5 months ago, right, I think we've all evolved a little bit.
Right.
So
And I guess-
when is the appropriate
Right.
time to talk about the
At the end of
details?
this discussion right now, what's the motion going to be?
The motion would be as,
Do we want to approve these 4 projects?
yes.
Right. Oh,
Yes.
okay. So,
Are we giving, we're going to take a vote to do these, to pull the trigger on doing these 4 projects.
Right.
As to the details of them, that is not
Can I
determined.
add into the discussion?
Sure.
I mean, after my discussion with Jennifer yesterday, my takeaway was this is a moment in time, and at this point, we're saying we're going to move these forward.
Right.
Everything still can change. We still have some pricing, particularly on the pool, to see.
Everything will come back.
We have broadbanding that sits out there and may come in lower as they do some projects. We're going to see every step of broadbanding that we could put money into this project. So I mean, there's a nuance there
Yes.
between, like, between, hey, I'll let these move forward, and I'm on board to what we ultimately end up doing.
I guess I just don't, I want to stay in my lane, and I
Yeah,
want to make sure
it's a
that I
great
bring
question.
things up at the appropriate time.
Right, instead of
But at the
tonight.
same time, I don't want to go, I missed an opportunity and kick
Well,
myself.
thank
you
you
know.
for asking that, because I do think it's important. I mean, we don't want to beat dead horses.
Right.
But each individual project does have a particular thing about it, whatever it is. You know, I think Skinner, we're probably beyond. You know, we've designed that to death. We have not designed the pool to death. We have not designed the parking garage to death.
You've seen conceptual designs, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, the golf course is already, you know, it's already well on its way, but the pool and the garage, there's still a lot, I think, that can be discussed.
Right.
As far as,
It may change. I mean,
Right.
Right.
even managing the projects, like
Right.
Jennifer said, we may only be able to manage one. The other one has to wait.
I mean, I think we're too far on the golf course. I mean, I think golf course and Skinner are well on its way. I mean, probably the only thing on the golf course we may discuss is interior of the clubhouse.
Correct.
You know, at some point or another.
Yes.
And the restaurateur, you know, those are pieces.
Right.
But I agree.
Well, just, because that's my opinion on some of those things as well, but it seems to be before us this morning, as 4 capital projects, we need to decide whether or not we're doing them or not.
That's what
But-
today's for.
But then I'm hearing comments of, well, we're far enough along, so I'm not sure what I'm doing. I'm not sure when to voice my opinion, when to voice my concerns within this process. And so is it right now, here today, for these 4 capital projects? Or is there going to be another time in the meeting to where, okay, does anybody have any concerns about any of these projects? Does anybody, I don't know.
So today,
Right.
what Jennifer's expressed to me is I need a vote on moving forward with these 4
Right.
projects,
And,
in generality.
right.
This is the funding plan. They're saying we can afford it.
And so I guess to be direct, and
This
you've
is the
heard,
time.
and you've heard my comments about the garage, is right now in today's meeting, the time to bring up those comments? Or is there going to be another time in today's meeting? I know what's
No, right
supposed.
now.
Yes.
Right now?
Right now. So
Okay.
I would do questions first.
Right.
Because I know we have some people here to speak probably. I would do questions first and then you can do your
Right.
comments after you've.
And I do thank you for this dialogue that probably took
No, you need
way
to-
too long, way
That's
too
important.
long than it should. So thank you for your patience
No,
as well.
and that's why I asked Jennifer,
Right.
what's the expectation of tomorrow?
Right.
Yesterday. Same thing. I wanted to know what are we here to do so we can shepherd that.
So, and the reason why it has to occur today is because we need to move to our first budget public hearing on September 6th, and we need to know if the project is in or out, so that we can bind that budget and present it to all of you and the public.
And that makes sense. Right. Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions, though, on the 4 projects?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay.
Oh, I do, I'm sorry, can I ask one more? So on the pool, this may be a Vince question, what's the nuance of the slides being an ad alternate? Like, it's already
Oh, that
designed.
was Jeff's question.
Well, yeah, well, and
Right, no, but that's what,
Yeah,
he said it, but I mean, it triggered to me to like understand what is the nuance. Like, to me, it's already designed.
I think, Jennifer, when
It's
we
not
did
going
the
to
ad
change the design,
alternates.
it's not going to change the price, right? It's just a, hey, if we do the slide with it, this is the extra cost.
Correct.
I just want to
But-
make sure,
but
because you
with-
triggered that
but
in me.
With City Hall, we had ad alternates.
4.
Right, and if I remember correctly, the reason we had these ad alternates, like the slide, or like, but with City Hall, we had solar, we had, I don't remember what they all were. But the reason we had them was if the funding in our budget was better than what we projected, and we ended up with more money and wanted to add this to the project, we could.
okay.
So, right?
Correct.
And so it
Yes.
would be the same with the slides. You know, Les has already said, he's a conservative person when he does his budget. We always end up with a lot more money than we think we're going to have every year. Thank you, and thank you. So if the money comes out better, then the add alternate, we can add it in.
Also, it's really a decision
And
point
cost
for the commission.
overruns.
Right.
You never know about cost overruns.
Right. We go to bid, and the bid comes in for the pool, and if it's 13, 14 million for the pool without the slides, we'll also have a price for the slides as an add alternate, then the city commission would have a decision to make at that point.
But if we have more money in the bank, or if
Correct.
other projects don't have those cost overruns, and
Correct.
then
Or,
the add alternate is, we
right,
can add it.
Or if other projects
Exactly.
have to wait because we can't manage them all?
correct.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Jorge Quintas, Deputy City Manager. You asked the question as far as the nuance of structuring the bid with an alternate versus just a base bid. The reason for structuring bid documents that way is to allow, as Jennifer said, the commission the opportunity to award the project based on available funding, whether some additional is made available or not. But what happens if you make it all a base bid and you advertise it and it comes in substantially higher than what you have budgeted, your only option is to reject the bids. Whereas if you have a base bid with individual add alternates, that allows you, hopefully, to award the base bid with available funding and then not award those bid alternates. So if you combine them, it's either all or nothing. If you do a base bid with bid alternates, you can award the base bid and not alternates if you don't have the funding for that.
Or
Which
award the
gives us-
alternates also, which is what we did for
Correct.
City Hall.
Which gives us more flexibility.
Right.
Yes.
So just to be super, super clear, whether we do it all together or separate the slides as an add or alternate, has it been your experience that that changes the overall cost?
If you structure it with bid alternates, depending on the market and the complexity of the job, you might realize a little bit of a cost savings if you put it all together versus having bid alternates. But again, in this current economy, time is money. So if we were to do that and you don't have sufficient funding, even though it may be slightly less, by the time you repackage it, because then you have to reject the bids, by the time you repackage it and re-advertise it with those bid alternates, now the bidding community knows that you're in a bind, right? So now it creates a situation where it ends up being more expensive had you not done it the other way, if you follow, because as time progresses, construction costs continue to rise. So having to repackage it and rebid it could end up costing you substantially more.
So in a $13 million project, when you use the term could be slightly less, what's the definition of slightly less?
If I could do that, I could pick 6 numbers and not be doing this for a living.
You'd win the lottery?
It's difficult to say. It all depends on the market, you know, which contractors are available to bid the work, what's the expertise required, so it varies.
Do you have any additional comment on that?
I think that any larger scale project that I've worked on, the 2 city halls, they both had add alternates, and both times the city commission awarded all the add alternates. So I think what it provides for us is flexibility. And I think it's important to note that the city commission and all these projects, you're going to be approving or not, all of these projects in the future. You're going to see them again. So especially, you know, in terms of the pool. I think it's important that we get that base bid and find out exactly where we are, as it pertains to all the other projects as well, with the slides as an added alternate, because then we'll get the exact cost for the slides as well moving forward, instead of we'll add them later and we're not sure how much they'll cost at that point. So it gives us lots of decision points, I think.
Well, and if you look, you know, essentially 5 million is coming from ARPA, and we're under a time constraint.
Yeah.
So with that,
Right.
you want that flexibility with bidding, I would think.
Well, I mean, that goes back to you can move all the penny money to a later year and use all the ARPA money on one project early. That money's all shelled around. I mean, you know, it has that kind of flexibility to it, so you could write less.
Yeah, we can move the ARPA around on other projects for sure. Yeah, we
You could
can.
move all the ARPA money earlier to get rid of that deadline and wait, I want all the penny project later, you know, so
Yeah,
the deadline to me is a smaller issue.
yeah, we can move up to 10 million however we want, but that other 8 million does need to be spent timely. But yeah, a large majority we have flexibility with, yeah.
See what you triggered? Jeff.
Okay.
But thank you for doing it, because I thought, yeah, let's make sure we know the nuances of that.
All right, so do we want to go over the updates on the funds first, or should I open it up about the projects to
Mayor,
public comment?
Can I just add a quick comment?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is really for staff as well. We had a department head meeting, and we were discussing these 4 main projects. You'll see a construction management component in all of these projects, everything with the exception of Skinner Boulevard, because FDOT is offering the construction management for Skinner in its entirety. So that's a very good thing for us. For the others, we've added a portion of the funding for construction management. We'll combine that with whomever we need to hire staff, and we have open positions, in order to help us manage these projects. So that was a concern for the department heads, and I just wanted to be noted in the record that we have addressed it.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and go over these funds real quick, and then I'll open it up for public comment.
Can I ask one clarification? I'm sorry, but your clarification, you're saying we could do all 4 of these projects at the same time and manage them. Is that what you're saying? You worked through that?
I don't think we're going to do them all at the same time. I mean, in terms of the timing of it, Skinner, for example, and that's an FDOT project, is going to go underway. The golf course will be done in November of 2024. So fingers crossed, right? And so they will start at different times. But yes, we can manage them.
And that's what Jennifer said, she would come back
Right.
in the fall to talk to us
Gotcha.
about
Yes.
timing.
Okay, cool, fair enough. I just didn't want to, we know this is really coming down to the pool and the garage.
Correct,
So could
yeah.
you, can you manage those 2 together? I guess is going to end up to be the big question, even if we have the money.
Yes, we've put the construction management in there, and a combination of that with staff, and we can handle that.
Good enough, thank you.
Okay, so let's go over the funds real quick, and then I'll open it up for public comment.
Okay, great. We'll start with the penny fund. The assumptions for revenue are the same as we discussed on the August 15th budget workshop number 3 last week. Our sales tax growth estimates are consistent with the County of Pinellas. I want to mention that this long-range plan, we've gone out to 2030, which is the end of Penny 4, which is December 2029, to cover the full timeframe of Penny 4. In 2024, we have $6.577 million budgeted in debt proceeds in the penny fund, which is under the 24 column, the red font number under revenues. Our available fund balance in 2024 out to 2029 is positive, and at the end of 2030, the end of penny 4, we have an estimated unobligated penny fund contingency for unforeseen projects or projects not identified yet of $3.3 million. We believe that $3.3 million is an adequate uncommitted amount for penny 4. We're about 2/3 through the penny 4 timeframe, and we think that is a reasonable number. On the next slide, we show the penny projects. This is the same as we presented last week on August 15th, Budget Workshop 3, except we have 2 items that we've changed. The project cost changes are the parking garage, we've moved out 1 year. There is $1.2 million in 2024, and also $2.5 million in 2025 for construction cost in the penny fund. The project was moved out some due to staffing and workload and timing issues of other projects. We also had a small adjustment to the golf course loan, which is the very bottom red font number. We were just truing up the loan to the loan amount changed slightly, and it was increased by $1,800 per year to true up to what the actual loan amount is now. Moving to the CRA fund, this is our CRA fund projection, and
I'm sorry, can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
On the loan, where do you show that getting paid back?
Oh, the loans are getting paid back. If you look at slide number 5.
I'm looking at Penny. Where's the revenue coming back in where it's getting paid back to Penny?
The debt service, you mean? Yeah,
The loan is coming out of the Penny in 24, 25, or is that coming in? That looks like an expenditure.
You're talking about the golf course?
Yeah.
Yeah, the golf course we have as an expenditure. We have that set aside just in case that that the penny fund needs to cover the cost for the
The
club.
153, 306, and the 153.
That's correct, yeah.
So that's an expenditure. Where does it show that the golf course is paying the money, paying the penny back?
We're not showing the golf course paying the penny back at this time. We're
So
not.
why is it called a loan?
It's really, that's a good question. It really is a contribution, and we should change that to contribution. Because right now, we're not showing it being paid back.
Okay, keep going, I don't want to hold us up.
Yeah, but
It doesn't make
That's-
sense to me.
I think that's opposite of everything I understood.
Yeah.
Right.
It's going to be a loan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the enterprise fund for the golf course can pay it back once they generate that revenue. We're not showing it here now.
But shouldn't we have it on the books as a loan somehow? I mean, otherwise it just looks like we've gotten off our number.
Yeah?
I would recommend just throwing it out there that we consider it a contribution, and similar to the building fund. When the building fund started out, it got a contribution from the general fund of about $230,000. And once the building fund was self-sufficient and had extra funding, the building fund paid it back. I only say that because if we do a loan, it's going to be a 3-year loan and have to be paid back per our policy. It'd have to be paid back, starting 1 year later, and it may put pressure on the fund being able to pay that loan back and build it back up. If we just did a contribution, the fund could pay it back at any time once it had fund balance.
Except that this document that shows where the funding is coming from, under the Dunedin Golf Club restoration, does not show any penny money going towards the golf club. Because this money's going to the capital projects, and you're loaning out of penny to the operations?
We've got this showing now as an expense in the penny fund in case the golf course cannot make the payment. If the golf course is able to make the payments, then
We'll make the payments.
we would not need to have these.
But you can't take that out of penny. You can't use penny.
That's all the other projects.
It's the
That's why
loan
it's
is for
called the
construction.
loan. That's why it's called the loan.
It's for construction. And you can use penny for that.
Except that it's not listed here on the funding sources.
We can note it in there.
Yeah, we could note it in there.
Except you've got it all covered here by ARPA and Golf Operations Fund.
Well, I think fundamentally, Mayor, we're not sure we're going to use it. That's a stopgap. Our forecast is that the club, once it's up and running again, is profitable.
Right,
quickly.
that's what we planned.
But we don't know, once we shut it down, exactly how many members are going to stay and how many are not going to. So it's a moving target. So we wanted to show somehow that we would be able to cover those payments to begin with and make sure that they continue operating until they're up and running on their own. So we can show it in the table as that loan if necessary.
But the loan is for what specifically?
The loan is a 10-year loan for the
Construction.
to fund the project. 10-year loan, $2.5 million to fund the project.
So we put $2 million of ARPA
Right.
in there, and then the remaining $2 million was a midterm loan, if you will.
There's $2.5
So we're gonna have to pay
million.
it back.
Says, let me just say this, there's $2.5 million coming from Golf Operations Fund. Well, Golf Operations Fund it doesn't exist today. I mean, we have it, but you know what I'm saying?
It's an enterprise
So
fund, right?
Right. So you're saying that this loan from Penny is part of that 2.5 that's in the Golf Operations Fund?
So the intent is that the Golf Operations Fund pays the loan back. We want to be sure that once the club reopens, that they are able to pay that debt. And if they're not, then we'll use the penny money. And the intent is eventually that it will pay back, the Golf Operations Enterprise Fund will pay the penny back.
Is the loan that's showing on the Penny list for 3 years, the 153, the 306, and the 153, is that part of the 2.5 shown here in the Golf Operations Fund?
No.
No, it's not.
It's
No.
over and above?
It's over and
Correct.
above. That's
So
correct.
how is it going towards construction? Because construction's covered by these two things.
Right, so the 2.5 million is a loan, right? We have to go to market and get a loan for that portion of the construction of the golf club. Once it reopens, the golf club itself, once it reopens, we're not sure if they're going to be immediately generating the revenue that they're going to need to continue to operate in the black. And so what we did was we incorporated a portion the payment of that loan in the penny fund so that it's there if we need it moving forward. If we don't need it, it can, it can simply be removed from the penny fund.
And, I'm just going to throw this out there. Another option is that's how we've had it presented. Another option is we could take out the set aside in the penny fund and then address it with a budget amendment during 24 or 25 if we need it.
What's happened
do
with
that.
the $500,000, the grant?
So the grant,
I actually thought that was going to take the place of the padding or whatever. you
it
wanna call
could very well. It could very well. We'll have the bid back first week of October, I believe. We're going out first week of September, so we'll have the exact cost. That $500,000 is for construction of the historic golf course itself. It's got lots of strings attached to it. And so we would use that first, of course, as far as construction of the course goes. And we'll see what it comes in as far as the hard cost for the project, and then get into the 4.5 million as well, so
Right, but if the 500 million is in here, then you don't need this.
5 million. We're hoping.
Sorry, 500,000,
We are hoping, yes.
but you haven't done that piece of it yet.
No, I mean, we want to make sure that it's successful once it opens. So
Okay.
I'm fully anticipating that this will be paid back by the Gulf
Okay.
Operations Fund, but not
All right,
immediately.
I get it. I'm still a little confused, but I don't feel like it's worth us taking 20 minutes because it'll,
No, but I do think on the page in the budget, that should be made clear.
Yes.
What that is.
We can do
Yeah.
that.
We
I
can clarify
understand
that,
the
yeah.
confusion. Sorry,
It
we
is
can do that.
confusion because it says loan, but it's not then included on this funding
Got it.
right here.
We can note the funding there and in the budget
Yeah, I
as
just
well.
think it makes it more clear.
Right.
Transparent to the public. Okay.
We'll clarify that.
Penny.
Thank you.
Okay, next CRA you started to go to?
CRA fund, long-term projection, and this is going out to 2033 timeframe, the sunset of the CRA. Our revenue assumptions are the same as we presented on August 15th, Budget Workshop 3, and are consistent with the County and Pinellas estimates. We have debt proceeds in 2024 and 25 of $3.7 and $5 million, totaling $8.852 million in debt proceeds. In fiscal year 34, the highlighted row shows the amount not assigned to projects, which is $368,000. I want to mention that this number is lower than what was presented on June 1st, Budget Workshop number 1. When these 4 projects were discussed, that number was about $2.3 million back on June 1st. It is due to costs being added to projects in the outer years, which is on the next slide, slide 8. These are the projects for the CRA out to 2034. Staff has added more dollars to the downtown pavers and walkability project. Finance staff has worked with Bob Ironsmith, the Director of Economic Development, and he's proposed increasing in 2030 and 2031. Each year, we increase by $1 million, so we've added $2 million over those 2 years to the paver project to provide more dollars in the future for this project. And also, the Midtown parking facility budget increased, as mentioned a few slides back, by about $630,000, and that increase in project costs has been added to the CRA fund.
Okay, any questions on the CRA?
Are you concerned about the negative number for the reserves as a percentage?
No, I'm not concerned about the, which, do you mean out in 2034, or?
Yes, 25.
25.
No, I'm not concerned about that. That's just a very small number. Yeah, that's just a cash flow thing we can monitor.
Anything else? Okay.
For the ARPA fund, we've had a couple changes to the ARPA fund since the July 18th workshop number 2. We increased interest revenue estimates in 2023 to $400,000. It was $250,000. And we increased the 24 budget interest to $350,000. It was $250,000 prior. So, and this is based on, we have 10 months of actual for interest revenue this year, and we're trending well above the budget for this year. So 400,000 is a conservative number still with the rate of returns we're getting right now on our portfolio. And the same thing for next year. We think it's reasonable to raise that to 350. And for the projects, staff has reduced the broadband internet fiber Wi-Fi project in the amount of $300,000 in 2024. That amount has been moved to the Highlander Aquatic Complex project. The amount for the Wi-Fi project was $600,000 in '24, and now it's $300,000 in '24. Are there any questions on the ARPA fund?
Okay, I think I'm still confused about it. So originally, we had like 2.1, and where's the balance of all that money?
For the Wi-Fi project, I'm sorry? Yeah, the Wi-Fi had about 2.6 million left on the project, and now we've reduced that to about 2.3.
Okay, and
Yeah.
where does it show? Okay, so that's just in the breakdown, so,
Right.
yeah, so, okay. Well, I mean, not a secret, obviously. I don't know that we need to go through a big, presentation today. But I just think every time we talk about these 4 main projects, which is probably going to end up being 2 main projects, we should be talking about broadbanding. And I know we're going to be approving that all along. I know the first leg came in low, so maybe it'll all come in low. But to me, again, unless somebody tells me different, broadbanding is not more important than our main projects. Therefore, it ought to be always part of the thought process that when we need money, that's where we should be. We should be evaluating that money going over to these 2 projects. So that being said, I mean, again, as we've said, this is a moving, flowing situation, and I don't know. Do we need to look at the breakdown of broadbanding today? Like, is there anything like that we're ready to do right now? But again, it'll come to us, right? It'll all come to us for approval, each step of it.
Right, and that's an important point. Very little of this would be within my delegated authority, which is $50,000 to spend. The first part of it, the first leg of it, which is the wastewater treatment plant to New City Hall, we estimated $100,000. It came in at $48,000, right, Michael? So,
Correct.
The thing about the broadband, I think it's a little bit different than the other projects because we're not dealing with a lot of rebar and concrete. So we're hoping that any future projects come in low like that as well. And then to that point as well, given this discussion, even if it is within my delegated authority, and I would bring it back to the city commission to just, it might be under city manager's update or whatever it is, but bring it back and call it to your attention since the commissioner has consistently expressed concern on that project versus the other projects. So I'm sorry, Michael, I didn't want to.
No,
I was just trying to fight the urge for us to have a presentation right now and decide, is it more important? But, I mean, all of this is going to be moving and evolving as to this point in time. What do we move forward? And then we're going to get more information to make better and better decisions, which may end up anywhere. Other
Correct.
than probably Skinner's going to happen and golf course is going to happen, because those 2 are too far along.
Correct. We're waiting to we're finalizing the documentation to bid out the cost for all the projects. It may come in a lot lower, may come in higher, we just don't know yet. And then we determine from that which phases we want to do. But keep in mind, we have to do something to provide broadband internet since we've already put in infrastructure, unless we could fund that infrastructure some other way. But the goal of the broadband was to provide public internet. So we have to provide it somewhere in order to do this project. Otherwise, we would have to, as I said, fund the fiber cabling from some other source. And I think Les mentioned that there
No,
might be a way to do that.
Trust me, I'm all for broadbanding, but it does not rise to the same level as these projects that we're trying to make happen. So, so as long as we're going to have another evaluation point, then, I don't want to belabor it.
So when we get those costs in, we'll bring it back to the commission.
Was that a strong requirement from the program?
ARPA, yes, American Rescue
Very
Plan Act.
strong.
It's not a requirement.
It was one of the projects that ARPA was really,
Pushing.
Pushing,
It was
yes.
not a requirement.
but it's not a requirement.
We got a
no.
lot of we got a lot of stuff on our table to make happen, I'm just saying. I mean, we don't need to have the debate right now, because we don't have all the facts laid out, so I'm just saying it was not a requirement, and all I'm saying is, we have some very difficult priorities we're setting, and that should be on the table. That's actually all I'm saying. Doesn't mean I'm not for broadbanding, just means it should be on the table with these other big projects that we're struggling to figure out.
Well, I think once whatever the vote is today, and we pull the trigger, you know, Jennifer and her team are telling us we can afford to do this and that we can afford to do it all. And if something happens and some cost overrun, they'll come back and make recommendations. So I'm just not going to worry about it at this point, you know?
I do have one question just related to that. So that 2.1 million in 2023, that was all spent on infrastructure, hardware? Is that money, or is there anything of that we're carrying forward, or,
None of that's been spent yet.
say again?
None of that has been spent yet. That's
Okay.
proposed costs.
Okay. Not obligated, not committed?
No.
Okay.
And you're right, that'll end up being a carryover, Commissioner.
Yeah, that was kind of my point, Rob, that
Yeah.
it's there to make
Okay.
sure that we're weighing it against our other.
Yeah. Okay. No, thanks.
Okay, and the final piece?
For the Golf Operations Fund, we've made some changes in this fund since the July 18th Budget Workshop number 2. First is we've removed the State Historic Grant that the Dunedin Golf Club has preliminarily been awarded in the amount of $500,000 from the miscellaneous revenue line item in 2024. The $740,000 that you see under miscellaneous revenue in 2024, it was $990,000 on July 18th, and we've reduced that. And also, we had $250,000 in 25 as well. We added a footnote in the assumptions page regarding the grant, and that our city staff is working with the Dunedin Golf Club and the state to determine the legal arrangements and agreements required to apply this grant to the project and to determine the best path forward, and we're in the process of working on that. The goal is to use this grant towards the project and reduce debt service, or to be used for contingency if the bids were to come in higher for the project, which is currently budgeted at $4.5 million. We also revised 24 personnel costs with better information for healthcare costs and estimates for cost of positions. And kind of big picture overall, in 2024, we're projecting that the available fund balance will be slightly positive, about $68,000. And the course, again, will be closed from March to November 1st, estimate in 2024. And based on our estimates of cash flow, the cash flow will cover us through 2024, through September 2024. And then in 2025, we're projecting to be break even or slightly negative when the course reopens and begins to build reserves in the outer years. In future years, 26 to 29, we are projecting revenues more than expenditures each year out to 2029. Are there any questions on the golf fund?
Questions? Okay.
We're now this is a similar format that we presented at the last meeting for the projects, and we have our debt service ratio calculation that we mentioned last time. I want to go over again briefly. This includes the estimated loans today at this point in time of $17.9 million towards the bottom for the total of the CRA fund, penny fund, and golf operations fund. Our target is that this ratio be no more than 20%. As the commission knows, we're currently at 13.2% with existing debt outstanding, and then with these proposed loans, our estimate would be it'd be about 18.2% ratio and below the 20% target.
Any questions on that? Okay, the financing summary?
And for the financing summary, with the loan amounts just discussed of $17.9 million in the three funds, the CRA fund, penny fund, and the golf operations fund, the projected annual debt service is shown on this slide for each fund, and the maturity dates are listed for each loan amount. The CRA fund, as mentioned on April 4th and June 1st, workshops would be a 20-year loan. I want to make sure I point that out, and would be paid for by the CRA fund out to fiscal year 33, and then in 34, when the CRA sunsets, the CRA TIF revenue will transfer over to our general fund as general fund ad valorem revenue, and our estimate is that will be about $1.2 million, $1.3 million in 2034. The debt service payment of approximately $641,000 would be paid by the general fund from 34 to 43, and the maturity of the loan. And the general fund, want to point out, the general fund would still have about $700,000 or more in fiscal year 34 and future years for other economic development type projects. And that 1.2 million will continue to grow as well. In 34, we'll come over at that amount, but with AV growth out to 5 years later, it'd probably be about 1.5 million. I also want to mention that in the middle of the slide, the estimated annual debt service amounts for each fund with these proposed loans. The CRA fund is $641,000 annual debt service. The penny fund is $1,383,000 annual debt service. And the Gulf Operations Fund is $306,800 annual debt service. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Les, just to be clear, on the maximum, the annual debt service payments, are those the amounts for just these capital projects, or are those the total amount of debt service payments to those funds for other projects we've also done?
Those are the amounts for these proposed loans we're talking about today. Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. And for instance, the CRA fund, as an example, has a loan right now that the debt service is $403,000. They've got one loan right now that is for the parking lot that we purchased. So that $403,000 plus the $641 would be their total ongoing debt service.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
If we took down the debt that we're talking about here, we could end up with about $125 million in debt, according to the budget numbers at the end of this budget period. Is that correct?
I think it'd be more, I think we're at right about 98 million right now, so it'd be 98 million plus 17 million, 115 million roughly.
Okay, I was showing from a previous document that we had here, it was on page 14 of our book, it was 28.7 increase, but okay, so
Yeah, I think the difference there is, it's about 120 million roughly, but the difference there is that number you're mentioning does not include some of the debt service payments we're making this year that would offset that sum, but still about 120 million, yeah, close to it.
So we're coming from a high of, in 2022 of 107, and then we took it down a little bit to 106, and down to 98. Now we're popping it right back up to pushing these numbers, these ratios that you talked about. So we're really pushing it from the debt standpoint. That's a comment, more than a question, but it seems like we're really pushing it compared to what we've done in the past. And I'm asking that. It seems like we are.
We are increasing it, yeah, we're increasing it, yeah.
Thank you.
But we're within our policy, and we're within sort of community standards from a percent ratio, right?
Yeah, we're within our policies, and, you know, from my perspective, the bigger issue, the biggest concern that I look at is affordability. And when I say that, it means that does the funding stream support the debt service payments? And that's what we've been walking through. So, and with current budgets that we have today and project estimates, then it's affordable.
And part of the reason is ARPA, we've got to use that up, but, you know, we're not using it all on any one project. Mm-hmm. And B, with some of this, like the penny, making sure that loan ends in 2030 when the new penny comes up, so we're not carrying this long-term debt. So you push it all together, right?
That's right. That's correct. And that's a good point.
There's reasons why it's all happening now versus spreading it out. Because if we wait until 2028 to do one of these projects, or 2027, let's say, well, you're not going to take a 3-year loan out on a $10 million project. You need the 10 years to pay it.
Right, because we're looking at barely a 6-year loan.
Yeah,
right. That's true, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So is a matter of confirmation on this then, just so, follow up to the Vice Mayor's question, comment. Looking back at the debt service ratio, That 18.2% reflects total annual existing debt service to CRA Penny Golf Operations Fund to the incoming revenue, total.
That's correct. It's all the governmental funds, debt service over all the governmental revenues. That's correct.
And is this a Dunedin policy? Is this, what drives, because that 18.2% is obviously less than the 20% margin that you established. How does that get established?
Yeah, it was established by commission back in 2018, but quite a few cities have a similar type of requirement in their policy. I've done some research, and not all cities, but a lot of cities have a target that they assign in their policy to, try to stay above or below a certain target. So, but ours was set up. We had, prior to this, we had a different percentage, but it was changed to 20% in 2018 when we amended the debt service policy.
And I will say that the finance board had had their discussions on it and weighed in, so.
Okay. And the interest on the debt service, that's fixed, right?
Yeah, they're fixed rates, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So no surprises in terms of.
Yeah, should be no surprise. And again, these are our best estimates of roughly 4% interest rate. That's our best estimate, and we continue to monitor that, but that's still reasonable at this point in time with our dates we're looking at.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And is 20% a typical? I mean, is that something you hear from other cities, or is it lower, higher?
When I looked, I saw quite a range. I saw from 15% to 25%. So it was quite a range, the ones I looked at.
So we're kind of in the middle. And my other question is, I have two questions. The 18.2%, again, I think when we looked at what part of that was pretty much, I mean, it's our debt, obviously, but we have two very reliable partners really paying the debt, which is the Blue Jays contract from the state and from the county. And how much of that, what would that 18.2% be again?
It'd be about 11.5, 11.6%. Yeah.
So when we look at, outside of that, and we had lots of discussion as to whether that, I mean, obviously it's our debt, but it's very, very guaranteed debt from others paying for it. And then the other thing I would just add as a comment would be, and you brought it up, Mayor, that we have challenged ourselves to finish projects within the life of the penny. That has not been true of past commissions. We had the community center project and the fire department that came after last penny. They bled into the next penny. They trusted that the penny would be there. We've chosen not to do that. So we've challenged ourselves to be a bit more fiscally responsible by doing that. So just wanted to kind of put that out there again. So,
No, good point, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to public comment on the four projects and whatever they've heard thus far, so we can then come back for a motion and discussion. So, anybody wish to come forward, give us your name and address for the record?
Good
Welcome.
morning, Mayor, Commissioners, staff. Gregory Brady, 15 Sandpiper Drive in Dunedin. Today I'm representing the Dunedin Chamber of Commerce at 301 Main Street. I did want to make the announcement that we listened to you, and the Visitor Center will be open on weekends, Saturday and Sunday, starting Labor Day weekend.
Awesome, thank you.
That's a good thing, because we are the busiest visitor center in Pinellas County, so we want to make sure we're serving our residents. The Dunedin History Museum is going to put signage for us to redirect the public to the visitor center that are not able to get in the museum. So we're happy about that as well. So my letter is from our executive board. Dear City of Dunedin, I am writing to express strong support on behalf of our executive board for the construction of a parking garage in our beautiful city at Douglas Avenue and Scotland Street, as our previous letter stated. We have been contacted on a regular and even increasing basis regarding the parking issues that have arisen during our city's growing popularity. Dunedin's charm, vibrant art scene, and numerous events make it an attractive destination for residents and visitors alike. However, the limited available parking spaces have become a significant challenge. Given that Dunedin has only 38,000 residents in its tax base, which is small, and thus why our business space is so important economically to Dunedin. The issue not only affects the convenience of residents, but also hinders the growth of local businesses and impacts their staff as well. With impending losses of over 50 spaces at Ocean Optics and other at-risk lots, while development is at a premium, it is raising even greater priority. Our master plan speaks to parking, and our commitment to the CRA and the county indicate a second parking garage to meet our needs. A parking garage would address these challenges in several ways. Increased capacity. A parking garage would provide a substantial increase in available parking spaces, easing congestion on our streets and reducing the time spent searching for parking. It would also replace the at-risk lots that are going away inevitably. Economic growth. Local businesses rely on easy access for customers. A well-designed parking garage would encourage more people to visit our downtown, boosting economic growth. Reduced traffic. With a dedicated parking facility, visitors may park centrally and explore the city on foot, reducing traffic congestion and making our streets safe for pedestrians. Lastly, sustainable development. Modern parking garages can incorporate green building technologies, promote sustainability, and aligning with our city's environmental goals. We understand that there may be concerns about the cost and aesthetics of such a project, but we believe these challenges can be addressed through thoughtful planning and design. Many successful cities have utilized parking garages as a strategic solution to similar parking issues while maintaining the unique character of their communities. We urge the City of Dunedin to prioritize this project and seek input from residents, businesses, and urban planning experts to ensure the parking garage aligns with our community's vision. By doing so, we can continue to preserve the essence of Dunedin while improving the quality of life. Thank you for considering this vital initiative to enhance our city. We look forward to a more accessible and thriving Dunedin for generations to come.
Thank you,
Thank you
Greg.
very much. Good luck in your decisions.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come forward and speak to the projects?
Hi, I'm Isaac Wazalewski, 2180 Santa Paula Drive, president of the Downtown Dunedin Merchants Association, and also partake on the Downtown Task Force. So parking is important to all of our merchants, but especially so for restaurants. With the outdoor dining becoming an increasingly popularity, especially given the great weather we have here from fall to spring, it means that restaurants need to be able to serve those seats with a parking requirement. So Kimley Horn, who's looking at redoing the ordinance for outdoor dining, parking is going to be part of that requirement. So given that our downtown is not a strip mall, merchants rely on public parking for their customers as well as for meeting these requirements for like restaurants for seat requirements. And for these restaurants, their liquor license requires a minimum number of seats, which are currently being able to be filled by outdoor dining or inside their own restaurants. If they do not have access to the parking pool, which they currently do, they can lose this license. With Ocean Optics going away and the city leasing a lot of additional lots, having assured parking is essential to allow these businesses to be able to continue to operate as they have been operating and to allow our downtown to remain quaint, have outdoor dining, and not be surrounded by parking lots. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isaac. Anyone else wish to come forward and speak to our projects? Okay, I'm going to come back to the commission. Thank you. Okay, so we've seen what the general projects are. We've gotten more refined pricing on all the cost estimates on the projects. We've seen the long-range plans for all the various funds affected. So now's the time to pull the trigger. Is there a motion to approve the current recommendation of the 4 projects?
Before we do that, I just have one question.
Sure.
With the pool, I know the pool is unique in the sense of the costing, right, the pricing? Remind me, like, what's the next step of understanding the full cost of that? And
It's going to be design,
Okay, so it's going to be designed. So
right? And then we do
probably have to-
construction drawings, so it's going to be a process till we get to the hard cost.
And the parking garage is already designed?
No. No, we have a
So that's in the
conceptual
same
design of the
position.
parking garage, right, same,
So when we say we have updated numbers for that, but
right,
we're
and so.
stronger than the pool numbers.
Yeah, so with the pool, it was difficult because we had just gotten the estimate based upon the conceptual design. You can come on up, Vince, if you can add. And the same with the garage. So we really wanted to go back and look at those numbers. The pool remained the same. There was really nothing to add based upon what we'd seen already. Go ahead, Vince, if you have.
Vince Gizzi, Parks and Recreation Director. We're working basically off a master plan, but we've been in touch with the consultant on a regular basis on where the cost is going. So right now, there's really no further update on the cost. It's been what it's been until we start getting into the design phase.
Okay. And Vince, make sure the activity rooms should be 1,000 square feet, and not 1,500 square feet. Those two party rooms will be used all the time, and just to make sure they're big enough. Sorry, just my little micro.
That does increase the square footage.
Sorry,
Thank
that's
you.
it.
I'm gonna
Gotta get
smack
that
you.
in.
I am
On
totally
rec-
gonna smack
On
you.
the record, sorry.
Okay, so I tried to give a speech and get something, and you interrupted
Jocelyn
me.
knows what I mean.
So, we have more refined numbers. We've received a financing plan, and we've seen the long-term fund projections. And staff's recommending that we move forward with the 4 projects. So I'm asking, can I have a motion to approve moving forward with the 4 projects? As we know of them today, that may all change. Do I need to pass the gavel to make a motion? Is nobody going to make a motion to move forward with these 4 projects? You've got to be kidding me. Are you serious?
I will make the motion to move forward with these projects at this moment in time.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Franny and Commissioner Walker. Okay, final comments. Floor is yours.
Okay, this is tough. I mean, we already know Skinner and Golf Club they're down the road. As the manager likes to say, they're 9 months pregnant, so that baby's coming. Those babies are coming. So it really comes down to the pool and the parking facility. We absolutely know we have to have a pool. The pool is leaking like a sieve. It has to be replaced. It's an antiquated pool. It's our only pool. We are like 97 degrees a day here, and we don't have a pool. We have probably the oldest stock housing in some areas of any community because we've been around longer than any community. So we have homes with kids that, they want to have a pool, and they ought to have a good pool. And I've spent a lot of time talking to families, and I respect everything from the downtown, and I know we need parking as well. But this is not a luxury pool. We're in Florida. It's hot. With the stock of our homes, like I said, as I've talked to families, they're excited about having a new pool, a modernized pool, one pool, and it ought to be great. We're Dunedin, and many communities have multiple pools. This is one pool, a place to gather for families. We have a lot of families, and I think to me this is a really important thing for our community as a whole. So that's my position on the pool, so that's why I'm putting that in it. Parking, I'm not crazy about a parking garage. I still wonder how we're going to make it look good. But at the same time, we know we have a parking problem, and we know we have at-risk lease lots, and we know Ocean Optic's going to go away, and there will be a sound heard around the world from just even our regular residents. Where are we supposed to park? And so I think I can't close my eyes to that either. Broadbanding to me is 100% on the table. I'm totally for broadbanding, but if we need that money to make our priority projects happen, I'm going to be in the court that takes that money and puts broadbanding off till 2028, when hopefully we'll have another level of penny. So I'm agreeing to move these forward at this time. It's not a promise that they'll happen. It's not a promise they'll happen the way that they're laid out. It's a moment in time. This is a moving, flowing process There's a lot of nuances, there's a lot of twists and turns, a lot of responsible money management we have to think about, and we have the guru here who keeps us centered in Les, our finance director. I am concerned about managing the projects. I do want to understand as we move forward the operational costs. I think the only one that's going to have significant operational impact to the general fund will be the lifeguard issue, et cetera, for our new pool. So I think we need to understand that. So again, this is a moving, flowing process, and I think at this point it's important to move these things forward for now.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Walker.
So in the presentation and the analysis of all the data, there are several distinguishing points on this, and I think these are important to highlight because we are in a point in time where we are significantly benefited by the American Recovery Act money, by CRA, and a penny fund that's just been doing extremely well over the course of this penny. And after taking a look at the projects and taking a look at how the projects are funded with ARPA, CRA, penny, these projects are absolutely appropriate for those funds. And if you take that into perspective, you know, the ARPA and CRA, and even the penny, is a use or lose. And these are specific, and again, back to the benefit that we as a community are receiving as a result of this, is allowing us to do this. And there are elements of these projects, every one of these projects is something we have to do. Swimming pool, I've made this comment before, but there is no amount of duct tape in the world that's going to keep that pool together. And the pool is a resource for the community. Our summers are hot. And the golf course. The comments I've gotten back on the golf course have been to the point where this is long overdue. And, you know, the golf course is you know, again, like with any business venture, and this is a business venture because we're going to be receiving revenue as a result of the operational component of it, you know, I think it's something we need to undertake because the potential, and I don't think anybody denies the potential of the golf course. The parking garage, yeah, I hear the chamber, I hear the downtown merchants, and I agree that we've got an issue coming up with maybe possibly in the near future reduction of 50 spots over there in the Ocean Optic building. And I think because of what the merchants, what the overall chamber is for the business community here in Dunedin, you know, when they ask for it, and you know, I think we need to provide it. The other thing is so for the ARPA, CRA, and I'm not sure if I made this comment, but you know, this is use or lose money.
You did. You made
Okay.
that comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the final.
It was worth saying twice.
It was
you know,
worth saying twice,
It
because
was
that
worth
is
saying
part of the
twice.
point. Yeah.
The final point, and this is really more of a reflection on the great financial management that Les and his team provide, because think about it in these terms, okay? We take a look at the total debt service, 18.2%, which, you know, it could be, some people might say it's bumping up against that 20%, which we don't want to get to. But to Commissioner Franey's point, if you take the Blue Jays are 11.5% of that, okay? And that's, you know, that's like quadruple, quintuple A rating, you know, assurance that we're going to get that debt paid. So what that, if you do the math, then that 6.9% is what we're embarking upon with, I think, our capital improvement, if I understand correctly the math. The only concern that I have, and this has been something that's kind of bothered me for a little while now, is that You know, we've got projects we've already embarked upon, and we have given direction and provided basically a vote to spend money on projects at this point are too far along to back out of. That part made me a little bit uncomfortable when we were talking about this. So, you know, when we make that comment, you know, that is a little concerning because, you know, there has to be an exit strategy in the event that we can't, we can't fulfill that. But that's really it. Really my only comment, you know, because I'm referencing Skinner Complete Streets. I mean, you know, $3.5 million with a prospect of more. I think the businesses I've talked to along there, and the investments that are being made there, yeah, there is an economic stimulus. Because basically what you're doing is you're bringing Skinner into downtown Dunedin. And so anyway, those are my comments, and I greatly appreciate the analysis and all the information we've been provided.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. So as I look at these projects, I'm really looking at two projects because Skinner Boulevard is a given. I just have a question about the Duke Energy and the undergrounding, and that's simply because of cash. That's simply of money. Let's talk about that just for a brief moment, and I'll show you my concerns. My concerns are not about the projects that are sitting here. My concern is about the financial capacity of the city and what might happen if anything does happen to go wrong. There's also some very positive things that can help some of this. One of them, for example, is the freebies. We're still looking at a way of getting people moving around in the downtown area and potentiality of all of Dunedin. And that would be through a golf cart service or a service, in fact, perhaps a free service. Hopefully eliminating some of the parking. I'm a big fan of watching Tesla, and then there's about 3 major companies that are involved with self-driving. I'm not going to get into any of that at this point in time, but that's happening. They're using it in San Francisco right now. So hopefully that could perhaps provide some relief. So that's some exciting things, and we don't know where we are with. I don't know where we are with the freebies. I know we were going to have a contract with them, and they were going to start moving folks around in our downtown. I had the privilege of sitting next to Holly Smith 2 weeks ago, and Holly Smith was the mayor of Sanibel when Sanibel got hit. And I mean, Sanibel got hit, gone, just gone. We have capacities, obviously, to use FEMA if something like that happens. We have some insurances, et cetera. But I'm not feeling a lot of wiggle room here as we really extend ourselves in some of these projects. And if anything would happen to go wrong, we could start feeling that, and it could really push us as a community. I am attempting to make sure that we don't raise our millage rate and that we minimize the other rates that are occurring. And that's for our residents. I too have talked to a lot of residents. I've talked to a lot of residents about the pool. And I get different opinions than what I'm hearing up here, but I'm not talking about that from a project standpoint. The project has been delivered this way, and so we'll see what comes out of that. Again, some of the other concerns, we all know the financial concerns of our residents with the electric rates having gone up 14%, insurances. We went to the insurance symposium, and not looking good for Florida. That's both for buildings as well as for houses. We have reinsurers that don't want to come here right now. They're leaving if they were here. We have insurance companies, and we've mentioned this before. Farmers has left, and we have some challenges. I think we probably have a couple different groups of people. I hate to have groups, but you have groups of people. Those that are not affected by some of this, And I don't know, you could use a $100,000 number. And then you have those that are affected by some of this pretty radically. And even though it seems small, some of these things really do affect people on fixed incomes or on pensions that don't get increases, even though they may be living in less expensive places. Still, those rates affect them. So that continues to remain a concern for myself. If we move our debt up to that 120, we're talking about 120 million, and if anything happens to go wrong, we've got a war over near Russia. We know what's going on with that whole thing. And we've had these disasters that have been occurring. We have issues ourselves about sea level rise, and we got stormwater issues that I'm terribly concerned about. And I just really want to make sure that we are doing our best to have strong reserves, and you don't have to just have the minimum reserve, especially when you see what's happening in our environment today. So that's why I wasn't real quick to step up to a motion for this. Again, Skinner Boulevard's a done deal, and the golf course, don't need to talk about that. And the other two are good programs. I think I would like to see us wait just a little bit on those. As we go out, we know we're going to see some monies being spent by a lot of other governmental agencies, both the federal government, we got the IRA, we got the ARRP, lots of spending going on right now. And as a matter of fact, our federal debt is out of control. So at some point in time, I don't know what happens with that, but we do know we have wage inflation right now, terrible wage inflation. And that's affecting our core CIP. That affects our consumers. So taking all of those things into consideration, I just wanted to be a little bit more conservative than what approving 4 of these programs at this point in time and taking us to a created goal for our debt, yet it might not be one that we all necessarily agree with. I just want to make sure that we can pay it back and that we don't have any scrambles. There's lots of unknowns. I would go a little bit slower than approving all 4 of them. And then how do you unapprove them? What happens with them, or on we go? So that's a concern that I have, and I don't want to dwell on this any more than what exists here. We see the numbers, we saw the percentages, we see the funds, where they go. The funds, again, that's the Treasury Department for me. I don't need to get involved in that. How that happens, I would spend our ARPA money, and I've said that from the very beginning in my conversations with the city manager from the very beginning. Spend the ARPA money fast. Spend the money, and there we go. So we don't want to lose that. We don't want to lose any money. So I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just wanted to go slower. And this is a big bite for us. I'm afraid it may lead to some other unintended consequences for us and for our residents. So based on that, I just wanted to make that comments for all of us. We understand how I feel about it, that I understand some of the people that I have spoken to about this, both about the debt and specifically about all 4 projects. I'm delighted. I was delighted to see people come forward, even on a public-private partnership on one of these. There's really only one that avails itself to that, and that would be the Midtown parking facility. So therefore then, I'm not against the projects. I'm just concerned about our extension of our finances and financing on this. The Board of Finance brought that same thing up, and they suggested that we go slow, and they were concerned. I am as concerned as well. Thank you.
So where do you stand? Are you supportive of moving forward or not?
I'm concerned the way we're doing this, how we're doing this. I would rather see us, we have several times received In fact, I think it was in section, or part 2, or whatever we had. Part 2 had the parking garage out of this. I don't think the parking garage has to necessarily be taken out of it, but for the funding for it. I would hate to see us be jumping on that, and I'd rather see us put a delay on that. And then as we see things are occurring, go forward with it.
Well, I think Jennifer's going to come back in the fall and talk to us about timing. I mean, that's the whole thing. We're not saying everything's going to go up today. I
Well,
mean, that's why, this is a matter of really, in overall, the projects themselves. Do we need them? Yes, we should go forward. And then how all that funding lays out and how we can balance doing the projects and all of that's going to come back to us.
well, that's what I'm saying. Why do we do it now? Do it later.
Because we have to put it in the budget, and the budget has to be approved in
So,
September.
so therefore then, for me, the budget is just it's too top-heavy.
Okay, so your vote is no. That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm just trying to hear, I understand your concerns, but your vote
Well,
is no.
I didn't know we were voting yet, and I haven't listened.
Well, yeah, we made a motion, and we're doing our final comments.
Yeah.
Commissioner Franny made a motion. Commissioner Walker made the second. You're giving your comments. They said whether they were supporting it or not. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mayor. Absolutely, the pool, I'm going to be pretty quick about all this. Y'all have heard my comments before. I think the pool is necessary. Certainly, the golf course is necessary. We're far enough along into it. Between the Skinner improvements and the parking garage, I do actually find them contradicting in themselves in where we are for transportation. One of them is trying to slow traffic down and incorporate other forms of transportation, and the other one is absolutely car-centric. And so it just seems to me it's a little bipolar in that regard. And so that's why I didn't make the motion or second, because I'd rather have us address each one of these projects individually, because now I am in the position of either voting yes for all of these or voting no when I might accept some of them. So I'm in a pretty awkward situation. For the parking garage, for me, it's not a no, but it is a pause. And it's not a pause because of timing, it's a pause on whether or not we need it. Again, going back toward comparing it to the Skinner Boulevard. I've made these comments before. Let me see, just real quickly. I know there was a difference in belief the last time we brought this up, but I have read that parking study, and while the date of it might be old, the data in it is still accurate and valid. And so we did have a parking study that was done that questioned whether or not we needed a parking garage. I've talked to at least one of our at-risk lot owners who is more than willing to go into a long-term agreement with the city, which does kind of question, when we say at-risk, exactly what is the degree of that at-risk in all of our lots. Certainly the tone of the conversation today was ocean optics, and that is probably the one that's really valid. I get that. It's under contract and something's going to happen. We know something's going to happen. I think a better option is to keep things small in the city, keep the Scotland lot single story, surface level, and then my suggestion before was to work with Coca-Cola. I understand that property is outside the CRA, which has now funding issues. I get that, but if financing is on the table, maybe that's not an issue. But with that, you're diversifying your parking area in the north end and the south end of Douglas, which now will allow for redevelopment along that entire corridor, instead of putting all of our eggs in one basket in one location. That one location that we have is at the corner of Douglas and Scotland. Scotland is a residential street. Right now, if you head north on Edgewater, you have 4 streets Scotland, Albert, President, and Aberdeen all have signs on them where pass-through traffic, cut-through traffic is not allowed between 4 and 6 p.m. The reason those are there is because of the way traffic backs up through that intersection at Broadway and Main Street. The reason those signs are there is because those residents reached out to us and said, we have a lot of pass-through traffic on our residential street. And so now if we say we want to have a parking garage there, what is that saying to those residents? We had a concern for you all at one point, but now we don't care as much about your concerns about traffic because we need a parking garage. And so it's just what I'd like to see happen is just a pause to rethink, look at what the county is doing. Mary, you're doing a fabulous job on Fort Pinellas on pushing waterborne transportation and we're all trying to get the Jolly Trolley down to 15 or 30 minutes. We're working hard for those other forms of transportation, public transit. We've added some more parking spaces downtown with our Mies building across the street. We've incorporated a looper to try and get to those others. So we have done a lot to try and address a parking concern in our downtown area. So I think we are doing some very right things. But a parking garage, and especially because of the financing, I was actually against the financing before. But now I'm thinking actually with the financing of the parking garage, that really does take the pressure off of we need to spend that money now. We can finance it. So if all of a sudden over the next year or maybe 2 years, we think it's a good idea, we can always circle back, finance it, and get it done at that point if something doesn't come up. So financing does take the pressure off of us having to make that decision today. At least it does for me. I've heard what the chamber has said. I have heard what DDMA has said. But we are a walkable city. We're insanely proud of our walkable city. We have the most active part of the trail. And so I feel like we are just at that inflection point of really being the city that puts our flag in the ground and says, this is who we are. And so many times we hear the county spends $17 million a year just to maintain roads in the county. And they will be more than happy to tell you that's not enough. They're behind. And so I know that they would say, yeah, we agree we need to go multimodal, but we just need that much more money before we do it. We need to do that one more project to do that in Dunedin. We just need to do that parking garage before we can go multimodal. And so there's always going to be that reason to spend money on cars until we make a concerted effort not to do that. And so as long as we're still building towards car-centric, it makes that conversation slower and harder to do. And so for today's motion, Mayor, if you're asking, and that's a valid question, I cannot support any of these projects because of the way the motion was made, but I'm really only against the parking garage. So thank you.
Thank you. So throughout this process, for me personally, but on behalf of all our residents and our colleagues, we have tried to take a look at at the main projects we're doing, and we've tried to address all different constituencies. I felt that that was really important. Skinner Boulevard, while that definitely secures our downtown, it's also public safety, in my opinion. It's multimodal. It's many different things. The pool, it's on the north side. It's helping our families. It's creating something for the next 40 years, an experience. I believe it's going to serve our teens because I believe it'll be a much more fun place for them to be on Friday nights. Our 13 and 14-year-olds that can't really do anything yet and don't drive. That's a segment that you want to capture. The golf club restoration, it's historic. It's serving another, several constituencies. One, it's serving, a sport and a historic sport and a historic building or historic golf course, but it's also serving, I can't tell you how many organizations that love the view and love to go there and can get a reasonable breakfast, with a group, whether it's Rotary or a chamber dinner or whatever it may be. There's lots of constituencies. And then the parking garage, which is economic development for our downtown. So I have really tried to look at it, is it a broad-based group of projects? It's one of the reasons why I support it. The other thing I've tried to do is not pit one project against the other. Because we all have our opinions. We all have our philosophies. We all have our little niche of what we think good or bad. But as the chair of this board and as the mayor of this city, it's my job to bring people together. And so I have really tried not to pit one project over another. And I'm disappointed that some are. I am. No offense. Okay, I'm just telling you. Because I think the overall package serves this community well in multiple different ways. So for me, I don't have to have my own way on one project or another because I know that the whole community benefits and many constituencies benefit. And to me, that's more important than maybe some of my opinions about some of these projects. Because that's our job here, is to serve the overall constituency, to serve the public. I don't have to have my own way on every little project because I think it benefits the overall community to the best of our ability. And that's our job. And that's what I support. But I can't go unanswered on the parking garage, I really do. I just can't. And I'm not picking that as my favorite thing. I've tried not to say what my favorite thing is because that's really not my job. But I think that, and while I appreciate, especially my colleague in transit, my blood brother over there, I just have to, and John being our fiscal guy tries to keep us in line. I just have to say something about why the parking garage is important. I sit on Visit St. Pete Clearwater. I see all the numbers of how many visitors we have here. We can have transit all over our city, bringing all 38,000 people that live in our city down to downtown Dunedin. It wouldn't matter. The cost for that, it wouldn't matter. We would still need a parking garage. And let me just give you some numbers. We have an estimated 5.5 million cars added to our annual car circulation in Pinellas County every year from tourism. That's over and above, if you compare that to the residents that live in Pinellas County and how many cars they have, 5.5 million to 665,000. Now, take that down to Dunedin. Okay, Dunedin, we have, roughly, 36,000 as of the 2020 census. And if you look at all the census numbers and the average car per household and how many households we have, you're talking about 26,000 cars annually in Dunedin. If you take the visitor number projections that Visit St. Pete Clearwater give you, you're talking about almost 300,000 cars in Dunedin that are not residents, that are visitors annually. Again, 26,000 from residents, 300,000 from visitors. You could bring all 26,000, you could stop all those 26,000 cars of coming into downtown. It isn't gonna matter, we're gonna need a garage. It's simple as that. I don't need to see a parking study. You look at those numbers. It tells you everything you need to know. It really does. And there's arguments for everything else, and there really is. But we've been talking about a garage for 15 years. 15 years. For various reasons. our city has low parking requirements for our businesses in the downtown, okay? For good reason, because we want to encourage economic development in our downtown. So we don't want those folks to have to pay a huge amount into the parking bank, pay something, but we want to encourage mom and pops. If you require a huge parking requirement, and then, or you can pay into the parking bank, what independent business owner is going to be able to afford that? No, what you're going to get is chains, because they're the ones with money. So we keep our parking codes low. We try to encourage mom and pops because that's what we like. That's who Dunedin is. That's our downtown. And we don't want something different. But you can't keep parking codes low and talk about expanding outdoor dining and take away that parking and not provide the infrastructure that we said we were going to do in our CRA master plan to the county. Because it's like providing water. If you're adding 50,000 residents, guess what? You better make sure that your water plant can support them. It's no different. If this is the requirement of what you need, it's infrastructure to support the business community because your codes say a certain thing, then you've got to provide it. So it wouldn't matter if we have all this transit in Dunedin. It wouldn't matter if the freebie is going all over Dunedin. It's not going to solve the problem. And with ocean optics going away, and it will, it may not go away in the next year or two, it may be 5 years, but don't we want a parking garage before that happens so the SHIT show doesn't happen in our face? I'm sorry, it's called planning. And I know it's not a popular, it's not popular politically, and B, it's like the last thing anybody wants to build. But that's our job, is to make the hard decisions, which is why I look at this combination of projects and types of projects and where they're located all over our city, and I say we're doing our job. We're covering all the things we need to do. Yes, there will be decisions along the way. Maybe we have to get rid of broadband. I don't know. I mean, but the idea of what this says, the bigger picture of what this says to our community is we care about everything. One thing isn't more important than another. We are also working on multimodal. We're working on the looper. We will be working on parking sensors. I might be out of office when that happens, but it's gonna make our life different. And I'm not even talking about parking for events. I don't care about events. That's a different situation. I'm talking about people coming into our downtown, not getting frustrated. Tourists don't know where to park. And I'm not trying to build for tourists, but guess what? They're here. And they're the ones that are making, they, along with our residents, are making our businesses who they are. It's Pinellas County and Dunedin, the #1 business in our county is tourism, besides government, if you look at the size of government. I'm just saying that's, the county's spending, I don't know, $60 million a year in advertising for our county, yet we can't get them to give us $250,000 a year for waterborne transportation to remove some of those crazy cars off our road. So I don't want to be that group who, oh yeah, bring everybody here, spend your money, but we're not going to support anything for infrastructure to do that. I think we have to be balanced. And we're not just supporting tourism. We are supporting our residents. I don't want to be Clearwater Beach where our residents say, oh, I'm not going to downtown and I can never find a place to park. I don't go to Clearwater Beach for that very reason. And we are better than that. So there's a lot of other arguments I can give, but I won't. I think I've made my point. And honest to God, I respect your opinion about it. I know it's a philosophical thing. I do, and I get it, and I don't disagree with you on it as far as the transit goes. But I've spent 15 years working with the county trying to change that philosophy. It'll be 50 years before anything meaningful happens. It'll take 50 years. In the meantime, we'll still be dealing with a parking problem. So I just look at it different. It's not jading, and I'm not jaded. I still think going towards this is the right thing to do. And I think the steps by getting that 30-minute Jolly Trolley service, by the way, even when I'm out of office, I'm going to still be working on that. So I'll be in your face about that. Waterborne transit, getting people from Clearwater Beach to here without taking a car and getting them off of Alt 19. Our little looper, the parking sensors, expanding our parking stock. All of those things together solve the problem. There isn't one thing that solves it. It's all of those pieces together, and I feel like we're doing good with that. I mean, it's not perfect, but I do think we're doing well with it. And the parking garage is just one little piece of the bigger puzzle, Skinner with the bike lanes and all of those things. So anyway, I only did that about parking, not because I think it's the most important thing on the list. I think all four are equal. I think they're all necessary. They serve our constituency, and our professional staff has done a technical review and feels that we can afford it. We are not overdoing our debt ratio. Okay, if our debt ratio is 20%, we're at 18.2, and we think that's too high, well, then why is our debt ratio at 20? I've got people here saying we can afford it, and it isn't like we can't cancel one of the projects if we have to. So to me, giving the message that we strongly support this and not pitting one project against the other is the most important thing we can do on behalf of our residents. So let's do a roll call vote. Rebecca.
Commissioner Gao.
No.
Vice Mayor Tonga. Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Commissioner Franny.
Aye.
Mayor Wojciechowski.
Aye, and that motion passes 3-2. Thank you, guys. We're going to take a 5-minute break before we
Mayor,
move
may I?
on. Yes, ma'am.
Just as a practical matter, and so we have other things to discuss as
I
they
know.
pertain to the fiscal year 2024 budget. The four projects, we have the majority in favor of incorporating the four projects. I want to remind you, as a practical matter, that on September 6th, the budget needs to be adopted and the subsequent second budget public hearing
As a
by
supermajority.
Correct, which means 4 of you need to vote in favor of that budget.
And if 2 of you don't vote for the budget, I'm looking at you guys just in case, it ends up going to the state, right? I mean, it's a problem if we don't have it. So
It's a problem, yes. So
it's a major problem.
just wanted you to consider that.
Okay, we'll take a break. Thank you, guys.
Shocker, no.
Welcome, everybody, back. Thanks for allowing us to have a nice little break. All right. So next on our agenda is the general fund update, right?
Correct.
Okay. Let's see it.
Okay, for the general fund, we have a few changes to the general fund since our budget workshop number 3 on August 15th. And the changes are under the revenue section. For 2023, we increased fine revenue by $120,000 to more of an actual projection for fiscal year '23. And for 2024, we increased revenue sharing line item by $150,000 from $1.5 million to $1.650 million. This is consistent with the state's estimate and also the updated county estimates as well. That revenue source estimate has increased by the state and the county both. And for 2024, we increased electric services tax by $50,000 more and increased that to $3.850 million. For the expenditure side, we increased personnel costs by $277,000 in fiscal year in the general fund to include the cost of the 2024 proposed new positions. That'll be discussed in a few minutes here. We also increased operating costs by $102,000 for the estimated impact of the facilities personnel costs on the ISF charges associated with the new proposed positions. With the changes just mentioned, the revised general fund reserve amount at the end of '24 is at 19%, and the shortfall amount from '25 to '29 is at $1,285,000. That shortfall is a little more than it was on August 15th. On August 15th, Budget Workshop 3, that was $1.1 million, and that's due mainly to the increase in the cost of the new positions that we're proposing in the general fund. I want to mention that the 2025 reserve level is at 13.1% in the slide above, and which is about $760,000 less than the 15% target we have. And so it's and that could be adjusted with either increased revenues or reductions in service or service levels or a combination of both. Are there any questions on the general fund update?
Okay, questions? Jennifer, one of the things that I had asked you, I don't know if it was yesterday or last week, what was it? We usually, at the beginning of the budget process, always see a year or two out, this budget shortfall. And then when we go through the whole summer process, and we whittle everything down, and we get to sort of the final thing, it's always a lower amount. What did you tell me that was? Didn't you say? We always end up finding the money somewhere by tweaking our budget, right?
Well, yeah, in two ways. First of all, our projections are low. They're conservative.
Very
And
conservative.
we adopt the county's projections. You know, They
Right.
have an entire office of budget, and they provide those estimates as far as ad valorem taxes.
Which are very conservative as well.
Which are, yes, they're very conservative, and they need to be. So we, usually generate additional, and then we also have the fund balance moving forward as well that we roll over to the next fiscal year. So that we see 1.285 million as our projection for fiscal year 2025 at 13.1%. We usually hover around 1.3 million, given our conservative
So
estimates.
that's average.
Right, yes. And we'd
We're
much rather
not-
be in a
we're doing
position where we don't have that shortfall moving forward, but we do, and we're usually able to address it.
So during the last 4 or 5 years, that's usually been the average when we're looking 2 years out like that.
Yeah, right around 1.3 less.
Yeah, I would say somewhere in there. It varies year to year, but anywhere from 1 million to 1.3 million generally.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the shortfall itself is just sort of like a key. And again, the shortfall is 2 years out from today, more or less.
Yes.
But it's a key indicator that says, okay, we got to watch things. And this is only in the general fund. The projects that we discussed before, the majority of that is not coming from the general fund.
Correct.
It's coming from other things. So it's just another key indicator. but, and I hate the fact that we even call it a shortfall, but we do.
Yeah. And one thing, as long as you brought that up, Mayor, that I want to be very clear about is that we are not running this fiscal year at a deficit.
No.
We
not at all.
have got to submit to you a balanced budget, and we have.
Right.
So, I do see out in social media sometimes that we have this deficit. We do not have a deficit, and we won't have a deficit in fiscal year 2025. As Les said, there are a number of things that we can do: increase revenue, decrease operations. There are all sorts of
Right.
ways to address that if we have to.
We're just not going to spend our time in 23 worrying about 25 because 10,000 things can happen.
We have to have some projection. We have to have
Yeah.
a forecast, right?
Right. So, I don't mean to say not worrying about 25 because we need to worry about it, but we can only tweak it so much until we're
That's right.
closer to the time.
Yes.
So what's your level of concern about it?
I think I'm always concerned when there's any sort of a shortfall. When I see it, are we going to address it? Yes, we are. We are definitely going to address it. I hate to see a shortfall in the future. And that said, we'll have to keep a very close eye on it.
Okay, and our reserve policy percent,
15%.
right, and we're at 19,
We're at 19 right now in 2024. Yeah, we're well.
Without
above
new
the target.
positions.
right, and at the end of
Including them,
23,
right.
right, at the end of 23, we're at 28.5, and at the beginning or the end of 24, we're at 19. So for those 2 years, we're looking pretty good,
Yes,
pretty strong.
Yeah,
And we'll
that's
just
correct.
have to keep watching,
yeah, pay close
which
attention.
says don't go over budget in this year or next,
Correct.
and try to figure out creative ways to cut. Okay. All right, well, that's the update for the general fund.
And the next section is the personnel request, and I'll turn it over to Teresa Smalling, the Director of HR and Risk Management, to go over that section.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commission. Teresa Smalling, Director of HR and Risk Management for the city. At Commission direction, we looked at the position requests that were put forth for fiscal year '24 at the number 3 budget workshop, and staff has whittled this list down from 16 to now 9 positions. So what you see before you are the ones that staff believes that are needed for the next fiscal year. The ones that were removed were the park service worker, the one of the crafts worker 1, and one of the crafts worker 2 position, as well as the IT services manager. There were 3 lieutenant rescue positions that would have been paid for by the county, but the county did not recommend. So at this time, I can take any questions that you may have.
Okay, so before we do questions, Jennifer, you've gone through this. This is your priority list. Do you have
Yeah.
any comments on any of that?
Yeah,
before
so
we-
during the intervening period, I asked the directors to prioritize their requests. And I did speak to a few of them directly about their requests and their priorities. And so we come through the list. We looked to decrease the impact on the general fund, because it's almost always about the general fund. But regardless, I am confident these are positions that we need. The kind of the double whammies with the organizational review recommendation and the department director as well. So those positions, to me, were a given. The organizational review positions, they're important because we do that type of a review and then we don't address it. And I don't want to do that. We have additional positions that were recommended by the organizational review that I'm not recommending. Either they weren't recommended by the department director as well, or I just wasn't comfortable with that impact on the general fund. So the reclasses, those are all employees that are currently in place. And it's kind of indicative of the direction that we want to go in the future as well. So I am comfortable with these positions, and I ask the commission to authorize funding of these positions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, questions? Commissioner?
Do you have a layout of the general fund, long-term trend with all these positions funded? Do you have that to show us?
That's what we just looked at.
The general fund we just walked through includes
So the general
the
fund,
cost.
we didn't, the positions aren't in there. The
Yeah,
cost of the positions.
Yeah,
They weren't-
the position, the impact in the general fund for these positions is included in
Oh.
the one we just walked through. That is included, yeah.
Oh, that was, I apologize, that was not my
Yeah,
understanding.
Oh, okay, because Jennifer actually gave me a
Sorry about
different
that,
number,
Jennifer.
so I
Sorry,
thought it
yeah.
wasn't.
That's all right.
Okay.
Yeah, we had about $270,000 of personnel cost increase and about $100,000 of ISF charges that are included in the general fund.
Okay, cool.
I apologize, Commissioner, that is not what I
That's
told you
okay.
during
All
your
right.
agenda.
Sorry for the
Well,
confusion.
thank you. I
Sorry.
mean, that's good, though. It's good,
Yes.
because it would have been less.
With
Okay.
19% as a,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
Any other questions? Commissioner?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm trying to follow along. So the personnel number in 2024 general fund includes the 9 positions?
Not all 9 of them, just the ones that are in the general fund.
Oh, okay.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm clear now.
Yeah,
Thank
if you go to the second page,
I was right about that one.
can you go to see there, Rob? Look up at your screen now. See the general fund impact and then,
Yeah, okay.
and then there's some from these, I don't know whether it's fleet or, I guess facility maintenance is part of the ISF and some of that, that's what's in there.
Okay.
Right,
Yep.
correct.
You good?
Got it, yep.
Okay. Vice Mayor, any questions?
I'm going to kind of make this a question, because I don't have it broken out by general fund, but I did this just by the number of people who present what this information they had in the past, budget books, et cetera. And we had a chart here that I didn't give it at one point in time. And I went to the FTEs, I mentioned this at one of the previous meetings. So I went through with the number of FTEs starting in 15. I'm going to skip through and go, let's just go down to 21. In 21, we had 378 in total now, and this is not general fund, 380, then 392, and so now we'd be at 400 and some number. Is that correct for the total package? And I don't have the general broken down. So we're adding to the general. I don't know how many people are we adding to the general then?
Right here, 3.
Right. Vice Mayor, I think the number that you're looking at includes the VODs. As of last year, we'd started pulling out the VODs.
Yeah, it does.
So this number, in 2023, we had 364 regular FTEs. With the addition of the 9 positions, it would go to 373, which just anecdotally is 1 less than our fiscal year 98 numbers and 2 less than our fiscal 01 numbers.
Okay, so that's new information to me then. So we haven't increased the number of people then really in the general fund.
Well, we are increasing by 2 positions, 3 positions in the general fund for fiscal year '24. But I guess this just shows that our staffing is still less than it was in previous years.
So I know that the Board of Finance made the comment that you're still looking for 46 people.
Yes.
That's not in the general fund, that's in total.
Across all
I guess they
funds.
got that number from someone. And they said, why don't you fill those first? You've got a grand opening there. And of course, that falls back into this whole wage issue, wage inflation of what's occurring. So I'm watching that carefully and seeing what's happening. So I look at these numbers here, and I realize that we have not had these numbers in before. And all of the numbers that we looked at before, all of the sheet scenarios, I think you call them scenarios. All of the scenarios that we looked at before, none of them had any of the new numbers in them, although they were listed in one of the later or more recent scenarios. They were just listed that we're asking for some number 12 or whatever it was, but it was not in these numbers.
Correct.
Correct?
Yes.
And so that number is not, you said 288, right?
373. 3 with the additional 9.
I'm so sorry. The
FY '24, the total number of regular FTEs,
yes, please, go ahead.
373 with the addition of the 9. And that's just the regular FTEs. And that's across all funds, not
Correct.
just the general fund.
Good. Then can you say to me again what you had up here? Can you say what the general fund is?
Oh,
now?
so what we are recommending is the approval for 3 additional positions that impact the general fund.
And how many are in the general fund currently? I don't have that.
I would have to get that number for you.
Okay.
And just to your point where we do have vacancies, the majority of the positions that are being recommended are new positions that are not in a vacancy right now, are not a vacancy right now. So for example, the buyer, that's a new position to support the purchasing agent. And the youth services recreation coordinator, that's a new position to support the before and after school program. The horticultural technician is an additional position of one that was approved earlier this year to support the additional parkland, especially the Gladys Douglas property.
So those are listed here, the
Yes.
3 that we have are general. They're
Yes.
listed here. Thank you.
You good?
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gao? Okay. I don't think I have any questions either. Anyone wish to come forward and speak to this item? All right, seeing or hearing none. Can I have a motion to approve the positions requested?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's Commissioner Franny and Commissioner Walker. Any final comments?
I do. I tend to be pretty conservative about this stuff, as Jennifer knows. We've talked a lot behind the scenes about these positions. I came from an era of commissioners that, like, you add one, you take one away, period. And of course, I respected them at the time for that. But I think that, we're resetting the bar a little bit this year in terms of our market pay for our employees, because we know, that's why we have all those vacancies, right? Because we know we've got to be competitive. We're not in an era where we're going to be continue to have the great service, and employees are our backbone. We know that. We're just instruments up here, but they're the ones that make it happen, and we've got to be right about that. So we've done that with paying class, and I think the other piece is the court really being honest with ourselves about appropriate staffing levels. We've added a lot of stuff. Gladys Douglas property, but it goes on. And just from a facility point of view, we have high expectations. We have these new facilities, and they will not stay new looking if we don't have appropriate staffing levels. So when I look at the reclassifications, even the strategy and innovation manager, I know that the city manager's vision is to get us more metric oriented. And as somebody who sits on the Meese Morton Plant Clinical Excellence Committee, it's all about metrics. They spend a lot of time on metrics, both in customer service and in outcomes. And I think it's a really important place to be and try to go. And we know, Sue's learned through Public Works, we have a long way to go on our metrics. So as I look through these positions, the horticulturist, Gladys Douglas property, right? And we're going to pay more getting it outsourced and not have as much control about protecting what we bought if we don't have it ourselves. So important. Youth services rec coordinator. I think very important. Our before and after schools, they're an important part of our programming. They're really busy. They've gotten busier. We've downsized in that area. And now we're trying to get it back to where it really should be. And that has everything to do. It's not just being paid market rate, but what's the environment and the fair staffing levels we're putting in there to let people be able to do the job right. Business analyst is all about Sue getting better metrics in some of the stormwater areas. Craft workers are about our buildings, and there's 2. Water maintenance mechanic, that's important, the buyer. We used to have 2 buyers, we have 1. Jennifer said something to me yesterday, and I agree with her 100%. We've been able to survive with 1 because Chuck's so good, but he's retiring. And that position alone can get this city in so much trouble because of all the state laws about purchasing. So I think, whether or not we hire it, and then once the transition happens and we're through our capital projects, we can let one go, that's fair game. But I think right now that's a very proactive way to make sure we're taking care of our business. And I think the last two positions in the stormwater solid waste area are really all about what I hear up here all the time. Are we really about sustainability and resiliency? Because if we are, we've got to have the staff who can focus on that. I commend the city manager because I was taken back by the number of positions requested. She went back and took that honestly, and so was the finance board, by the way. So she didn't listen just to me, but it was also, or some of us, but she listened to the finance board's concerns and really took a hard look at this to try to be cautious as we move forward with how we add positions. And then the other thing I'll say is, and you guys know I can get extremely anal about the HR area and positions. And I have the stack of stuff from 2000, 2001, and we're below the staffing levels we had.
are.
And that's millage rates, but underneath that is all the staffing stuff. And I know how we used to define it. And we're, I don't know, 10, 15 positions below that. So, there's been some structural changes, automating sanitation that are because of some of that. But we've also added things like the golf course is 9 positions. So I looked at one in particular, like crafts workers. We have the same number of crafts workers we had 23 years ago. So we have to be realistic about the standards we set for our staff and being intellectually honest about how we are responsible to make sure we're staffing that appropriately. So I support these positions. I respect the job that the city manager has done in really vetting this out and bringing things that matter to us and having the courage to do it. And then having the courage to step back, pull 4 or 5 positions back off the table. So anyway, I support them, and I think they're good decisions, and I think they're fair, and I think they're an important reset that we have to do, and we should do it this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Walker?
See, I got you interested now, don't
Oh,
I?
yeah, I looked at it.
So back when I was with my last corporation, I managed business units, and there's so much similarities here in terms of how we're taking a look at headcount as we go forward into the next year. As Commissioner Franey stated, I would say that I was always a 1-for-1, but in keeping with making sure we're making smart decisions and managing our growth, I've taken a look at all of these positions, in terms of the demand for those types of services. Where I would say that we need to be vigilant, and this is more from an analysis perspective, but we have 46 vacancies, which I'm assuming all have recs associated with them. One of the things I would look at as a hiring manager is okay, the latency of those requisitions. How long have they been open? And, at some point, let's just, some point 3, 4, 5 months, you've got this open rec, and you should be asking yourself, do we really still need that position? And I think that's where, that's where the savings comes from. And I will say that, and to the point that Commissioner Franey made was in terms of what we've added in terms of services to the city, yeah, it's not unrealistic to expect that our headcount should grow so that we can keep up with those activities. And especially if we've got 46, and I'll make up a number, 2/3 of those 46 possibly are employees, critical employees. So, yeah, I don't see any. I take a look at this, and I don't think this is unrealistic. The city manager did pare this down. And again, the impact to the general fund. What we are reviewing today is a budget. The budget's a plan, and that plan is always subject to change. I had a commanding officer once who said, you need to have a plan so that you've got something to deviate from. And that's where we're at. So I support the staffing. I do think, though, just going back in terms of making sure that we are being fiscally responsible on this, I think there needs to be a review of those 46 vacancies and determine whether or not there's still a need for those. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to have to ask a question because I'm a little confused by some numbers now. We had three people coming into general fund, correct? And we got a total here of 690,000 of the 9 people that are being requested. That, you have to take away 57,000, I guess, from some of the upgrades. But was that correct for the general fund?
Yeah,
277.
That's the second page.
277, yeah.
So when I add that number up here, is that the same number? I don't get that same number.
There's some ISF, the
Yeah, there's some
Internal Service
ISF
Fund
too
money
in
in there
there.
as well.
Okay,
That's what he was mentioning,
okay.
which I think comes from facilities, right?
Correct.
Fleet and
correct.
facilities, yeah.
So when I took a look at this, again, we use the word sustainability, and I want to make sure that we have a sustainability for our workforce. And we did a little tag in just a minute ago again, where we say, well, don't worry, we're going to have a balanced budget because we'll just either raise taxes or we'll cut expenses. Well, if we didn't raise taxes or rates, what expenses would we cut? So I want to make sure that I'm cautiously approaching this from the standpoint of sustainability, because some of these people may be switching a job to come here with us, and I want to make sure that we have that kind of fund. So we went through that a little bit here, and we talked about some levels that we have here, because we just have to be at 15% in the general fund, and looks like we're okay there. The question that I also have, another question I have to ask, is are the number of golf folks in here, or are they not in here, or are they someplace else, or aren't there any?
Yeah, the golf employees are in the golf operations fund that we walked through. Yeah, they're all of their labor costs for 24 and future years are in that fund. That's
Thank
correct.
you.
Yeah.
I didn't know if we had one in here or not under the job.
We do have the GM of golf partially allocated to the general fund, but 80% golf fund, 20% general fund. We do have that allocation, but in general, the golf operations employees are in the golf operations fund.
Almost a trick question, huh? I didn't mean it to be, but so there's a little bit of a mixture.
A little
Okay,
bit, yeah.
so that's taken care of in the golf operations, principally all of it. That's basically all that I have to say, other than I am concerned that we don't move too quick on this and the adding of these folks as we see what's happening. Got some big things happening this week, for example, that will affect us financially. The world could.
Mayor, may I? One moment. Vice Mayor, I think you're referring to when I said that there are 2 ways to deal with that deficit. One is to increase revenue. The other one is to decrease services. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a tax increase. It could be, or a millage rate increase. As you know, it could be increase in property values as well. So I just want to be very clear. I wasn't indicating that one specific method.
Commissioner,
No comments.
Okay. Excuse me, on my end, I very much agree with what you were saying, Mo, all the comments. I don't want to repeat that, but, I was here I was first elected in 2006, when our property values had skyrocketed, and about a year and a half later, the world crashed. foreclosures, all kinds of things. And if you, can you pull up that employee graph that you had? It's okay. And you'll see there, and before 2000, this starts in 2008, but if you go back to 05, 06, I bet you that 394 is even higher. But you don't have to tell me that. I know it, because I was looking at those numbers. We had a lot more employees then, and we were managing a lot different situation than we are now. We have more property, and all of those things that have already been said. But if you look at 2008 and watch the number of employees that go down, it goes down to what, 330? 330?
330 in 2011.
Yeah. And then it kind of goes up a little bit, and this is showing 364. We laid off a lot of employees. It went from 394 to 330. That's a lot of employees that we laid off. We took the right financial steps that we needed to do with the Great Recession. You can't just not react. So, I mean, we definitely had a commission that reacted. But the subsequent consequence that I think a lot of government agencies were feeling is that everybody was very scared to add new employees because we all went through letting people go, and that's not an easy thing to do. It really isn't. So we kind of slowly went back to these areas where we had problem areas, but we have never, if you look at what it says there, 364, and it was 394 in 2008. We have still never added, the number of employees that we needed a very long time ago. I mean, over 15 years, whatever it is. Yeah, 15 years. And the toll that's taken on our workforce in this organization is because they're doing two jobs. They're still doing that after, 15 years. We have, department heads that, we would hope can be a little bit more visionary. They are working department heads. And when we started on our class and comp study some time ago, 2 years ago, we said, we got to stop the madness. We have to be forget of even being employer of choice, but we have to be a workforce that's not just trying to get by because they're doing the job of two people. We have to have a workforce that, customer service is important, thinking about the future, doing things, smarter, not harder. That all makes a successful organization. And I mean, I know it's the politically correct, fiscally conservative thing to say, add one, take one away. I think the Great Recession, we have to address what's happened over the 15 years. So I don't have an issue with adding these folks, and I totally agree, the 45 openings. That, to me, that it was sort of a culmination during the pandemic, and a lot of people doing the work of 1.5 people or 2 people. You can only sustain that for so long. And then the pandemic came, and they basically said, forget it, I'm not doing this anymore. And then you've got the whole wage issue. So I understand why we're doing it. I support it. I thank Jennifer for reviewing, 13 positions. I think it's necessary to run a successful organization. And we're still going to be less employees than we were in 2008. That tells you a lot. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Gao,
Aye.
Commissioner Torga,
Aye.
Commissioner Walker,
Aye.
Commissioner Franny,
Aye.
Mayor Wachowski.
Aye, and that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. We're grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we have the final piece of our aid to organizations. Les?
Yes, just a quick update. At the August 15th workshop number 3, we discussed the aid to organizations, and staff mentioned at that meeting that the Chamber of Commerce had sent in 2 applications, and our subcommittee only saw 1 application in the packet. The Chamber has provided some financial budget information to the city for the Dunedin Chamber of Commerce Education Foundation over the past week. Our aid to organizations subcommittee has looked it over, and we're recommending that we award the foundation $2,000 in fiscal year '24. This would still leave us $6,000 in fiscal year '24 for future grant requests that may occur during the year.
Okay. Any questions? Any questions? Public input? Hi, Katie, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thank you so much for this, as we are very grateful. And I just wanted to let you all know and let the public know what the Dunedin Chamber Education Foundation is. At the core of the Dunedin Chamber of Commerce Education Foundation lies a profound mission to foster strong connections among educators and schools, thereby enhancing the very fabric of the greater Dunedin community. Supporting our teachers and schools is of the utmost importance in today's environment, assuring their retention and recruitment to maintain the strength and success of our educational institutions, especially our A-rated schools here in Dunedin. The foundation places a special emphasis on promoting the arts, music, and will help provide scholarships for both students and teachers. Additionally, the foundation dedicates itself to celebrating Dunedin's educators through the organization of breakfasts and award ceremonies that recognize the outstanding achievements. The foundation offers essential support to teachers and schools by providing necessary supplies and resources to facilitate their growth. Your generous support of the Dunedin Education Chamber Foundation is genuinely appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, can I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Franny and Vice Mayor Twarnga. Any final comments? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, and thanks for all you do. All right, then we have the approval of cost to establish Spectrum Cable Channel at the new City Hall. Miss Sue.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Vice Mayor, Commission. In your packet, you received a memo summarizing some of the discussion that we had last week regarding establishing the cable live broadcast during our commission meetings and CRA and LPA. We've had some additional staff discussions, but you've got the background and all the history and the costs that we had obtained at that point. And then additional conversations that we've had, we've discussed the opportunity to cut these costs by just going with Spectrum TV. And I have actually had conversations with Spectrum last week trying to get data from both Spectrum and WOW in terms of their service area. Unfortunately, they do not have that kind of data. So we did feel that there's a strong viewership here with Spectrum, the Bay News 9, a lot of subscribers. So what we are looking at is reducing that cost that we initially discussed last week and focusing in on Spectrum. Their installation for the cable fiber, we believe, is about $7,500. There is a difference in the HD. This is not an HD cost. I'm waiting for those numbers, so it could be slightly different. And then the monthly at $1,000 a month, and looking at a 3-year contract. As we mentioned last week, the equipment that was at the old City Hall for the live stream, the switcher, is beyond end of life, and we would need to purchase a new piece of equipment. We are exploring lesser cost options, especially since we're looking at a 3-year contract at this point. So that brings us under $40,000. Right now, we're looking at probably between 35 and 40, not knowing the actual costs for the HD, high definition, which is what we would be looking at for Spectrum. So I'm happy to entertain any questions or comments that you have regarding this proposal.
Okay, questions?
I do.
Yes, go ahead,
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Help me with this because I'm struggling with this. Would you just again repeat the numbers of what this is going to cost us per year for the next 5 years?
3 years. We're looking at a 3-year contract is what Spectrum is asking us to sign.
Okay.
To install the cable into the building, the fiber would be $7,500.
Okay.
That's a one-time cost.
Okay.
And then $1,000 a month just to maintain it. A year, which would be $12,000 a year, and then 3 years would be the number, the 36,000. And then we do need a new piece of equipment because the switcher, which connects everything from our live stream through the cable, will need to be replaced. And right now, the cost that we initially got was between 15 and 20. We're hoping to get a piece of equipment that is less than that.
So here's the problem that I have. We're making a decision, and as I look at these numbers, it says, which cable channel do you watch? It says 11 out of 91 indicated they watch commission meetings live on cable, 11 out of 91. So 91 people were, obviously gave input to that they watch, and out of that, 11 of them said they watch this on cable. There are 2 cable television stations, 639 and 15, right, or whatever the numbers were.
Actually, that survey reflected 3, but Frontier as well, but we know that Frontier isn't offering new service into buildings. They're no longer doing.
So there's only one, choice. There's only
No, there are 2. There's WOW and Spectrum.
Okay, so there's still
Correct.
Still 2, okay.
Yes.
So I'm not sure that we should spend this money. Because I personally don't know, that doesn't mean there aren't 1,000, but I don't know anybody that watches this on cable now any longer. I used to know people that said they watched it on cable. So I have to look at this and say, if this were my money, how would I spend this money? And is this where I would spend it? And I'm not sure that this is where I would spend it. So can you help me with that? It's a struggle. I'm struggling.
If I may, Vice Mayor. We originally were concerned about that as well. A number of cities have no longer use cable. They live stream all of their meetings. The surveys were difficult. We did drop off paper copies of the survey at the Hale Center and at Meese as well. Typically, the clientele that uses cable, I'll say generally, not uniquely, is the elderly. And so they didn't really report on the survey. We did talk to Kent McRae at Meese, and apparently, the meetings are not, they're not watching the meeting during the course of the day. They're doing their activities and that type of a thing. But there are some, and we have heard from some, and it's mostly verbal. It's mostly, people coming to us saying that they're watching it. What we'd like to do is phase it out gently as opposed to immediately. Without notice to most of those folks. In terms of, we'd like to enter into the 3-year contract, put a little tag in our calendars and say maybe a year and a half out, 1 year out, we're going to say the city's going to drop cable in a year. And this is how you live stream, and this is how, in those types of things for those populations who cannot or will not or do not know how to avail themselves of live stream mechanisms. So we don't, Vice Mayor, to your point, we can't quantify how many people are or are not really watching cable.
You're just being cautious.
So the expression, that ship has sailed, or that train has left the station, or however way you want to do that. I can just tell you that my experience has been when people ask me, what's happening on the commission, I say, are you watching it? No, not necessarily. Well, if you did, how do you watch it? Many of the people that I now personally would be talking to about this no longer have cable, so they're probably not watching it. I am certainly not after any generational issue here. I'm just simply saying that somebody is paying this money out of our general fund, and I have not really been asked by anybody why isn't it on there. If anybody ever asked me before or talked to me about watching the cable, I always said to them, why would you really do that? Why don't you watch your television or why don't you watch your computer, and then you can go and watch what you'd like to watch rather than watch the whole thing. No disrespect meant to the commission. But in some cases, it's a long time to watch something when all you really want to hear was one thing.
Oh, absolutely, and that's the beauty of the Granicus website and the products that we have. And we try to encourage people to do that because they may only want to watch.
So to make me feel better, I would love to figure out some way, whether we ask the library to do this or not, but an organization like the library to do some kind of a little research thing for us, because that's where you'll probably find the most people that have ever watched and are going to watch it on cable would probably be those that are going to the library, I would guess, or those that don't go anywhere or don't go to any one of these places. But at least we get some statistics and figure out whether we really have to spend this money, or can we convert those folks, and the library could do that for us. Phyllis's organization can do that, I'm sure, of how to watch it on television. And let's have the train that's already left the station keep on going. It's not a lot of money, but it's a lot of money. We're spending our constituents' money on something that I don't know that we really need to do this, or this is the best use of that money. So can somebody help me?
Well,
I thought we did the library.
the highest number of paper surveys we did get from the library, actually. So
we did the
they do love paper surveys there.
So we did the library.
Yeah, the largest proportion of paper surveys came from the library.
No, I'm just saying, just on this one subject matter, if somebody could just do some research on this now to see where we are today. I know a lot of people that have just recently have switched off of cable, for example. I have no idea.
Well, and it's hard. We don't have any idea, and obviously, even the cable companies do not have any idea. When I spoke with Spectrum last week, I said, I would assume you would have an idea have data on your service area and also your competitors. And he said, if you can get that for me, that would be great information. So, and that's just in terms of who has it, not who's watching channel 6, 15, whatnot.
So when did you do the survey?
We did the survey in May and June.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if I may, since May and June, lots of people had switched off of cable. But if I may, I am not directly asking you what you would do if you had to make the decision purposefully. But can you help me? I have a problem with this. And if you can't, I understand.
I think, Vice Mayor, I think the answer is we can't, because we've done the survey at library, Hale, and Meese, correct?
And community center.
And the community center.
The paper copies.
Right.
And then, of course, digital everywhere.
Yeah.
And really pushed it out through all of our platforms, as the memo indicated. The newsletter,
Right.
of all of our social media channels and whatnot.
And that was in the effort to quantify how many people are watching on cable versus live stream, and we, unfortunately, we can't quantify it. I can't give you the comfort level to say, wow, there are a lot of people watching, Vice Mayor, on cable. All I can say is what we've heard by word of mouth. And the surveys, I think that they're more, I will say, try to be objective, but there are definitely more watching than was reflected on the survey, in my mind. on cable.
Thank you.
Jeff, questions?
Jennifer, what's our overall budget?
Our overall,
Overall,
okay, 120 million,
120 million? Thank you. That's it.
ish.
I'm going to jump to Rob, because I already know you'll be speaking a lot. So I'm jumping to Rob, because I'll let you speak more or less last.
So this is a pretty simple question, I think, but by my math, a 3-year contract would cost about $60,000.
In total, correct.
All in, right.
Yeah, that's the only question I have.
Commissioner?
Wow, that was quick. Yeah, so I want to thank the staff. I want to thank the staff for bringing this forward. You know, I get it. You ask, you know, a lot of people, it's like, well, I stream. Of course I stream. That's what I do. And so, you know, I did some of the best research I know how to do. I asked constituents that I thought this might apply to, and I got the answer that I didn't know what the answer would be, but I got a lot of answers as, yeah, I've gone to the channel and it's blank, and so I couldn't watch it. What's going on? Or is that coming back? And I would actually suggest that a couple comments up here are a little marginalizing of a part of the population that has been pretty loyal to Dunedin. I mean, so Dunedin is always proactive, and I think when we compare to other cities, we have to be careful because we've been proactive. We were proactive about television.
That's
You know,
right.
we were proactive about having the best Dunedin 15 channel that we could have. And so, and we put a good bit of money on it. Hired somebody to do a big professional TV production, and in our franchise agreements, we made sure that that was a priority, that we took advantage of the free services of the cable companies, which we could do at that time. And I think Commissioner Walker said it really well. And we trained them, right, because they liked it, and particularly for the meeting, not to go back. A lot of people didn't want to rewatch a meeting that had already happened, but they were trained that hey, this is when the meetings are. I'm going to watch them live. That's what they did. And I would suggest that some of those people are out there, and they're some of our most loyal citizens over history, and they're watching. And I think a 3-year transition is reasonable. So, because to me, it's not old school, new school kind of question. It's not. It's meeting people where they are to provide transparent government. And so I'm very supportive of this. I'm glad we're doing this. I just don't want to leave anybody behind. I think a 3-year transition just gives us that opportunity. I did tried to get to as many people as I could yesterday about who uses Spectrum and who uses WOW, because I thought, oh, this will be the new thing, you know, and because I agree with your decision. And everybody but one used Spectrum.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to guess who the one that used WOW?
No.
We all know, and actually, the one person that did talk to Commissioner Torga, yes, you know, a former mayor, and I asked him, like, is it a big deal for you to change? And he said, no, I can do that. I'll change over to Spectrum. So I'm just suggesting this is more important than we think it is. And it is about transparent government, and it is about how big our budget is and what our biggest mission is, transparency. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. You know, I'll be honest with you, my colleagues, I could have gone either way. I really could have, because I understand what Vice Mayor is saying. You know, the only thing is, the thing that got me is, you know, we are usually extremely communicative to tell people when something is going to end, not that it did end, but, you know, and, you know, there could be training classes offered at the library a year out on how to use a computer, and maybe they'll go buy themselves a computer to stream on, or a laptop, you know, and that proactive piece makes me feel like, okay, we're sticking with our Dunedin vibe. This is who we are, this is how we run, this is how we operate. I mean it, I could have gone either way, but I also had a former mayor, 2 former mayors in the same day. on the phone and in my office. What are you guys doing? It's like, I don't know. So, I think being who we are internally and not changing how we normally do things is worth not having a fight over 12 grand, so. Roll call vote?
I didn't get
Oh,
a vote.
wait.
I don't got a motion.
Did I do?
So moved.
Yes, we did. No, oh, we didn't. Okay, and I didn't open to public. Any public input on this item? Okay, can I have a motion to
So
approve?
moved.
Commissioner Frainie? Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Gao? Okay. Now roll call vote.
Give me Vice Mayor Torga?
A long delay with a aye.
That was a yes. Okay. Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
Commissioner Gao?
Aye.
Commissioner Franny?
Aye.
Mayor Brzezowski?
Aye, and that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And then our final item, which is, well, it says supplement. Does that mean it's a start item and I got to go through the whole thing? It kind of is, isn't it?
Kinda is,
Okay,
'cause
it's
it
a
wasn't
start
on the
item. So
original
can I
agenda. It wasn't
get a motion to add the lobbyist information to our agenda?
So moved.
Commissioner Frainie, Commissioner Walker, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes unanimously to add to our agenda. Jennifer, did you have any remarks?
I do, Mayor, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Actually, this item, just very briefly, the $60,000 for the lobbyist remains in the budget. During our workshop number 3, the City Commission asked us to bring back examples of some lobbyists and some of the appropriations and revenue that they have brought to some of our neighboring cities. So we have provided that under separate cover to all of you. And we're recommending that the funding remain in the budget for the lobbyist. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Any questions for Jennifer?
No questions, I have a comment.
Okay, well, I did want to, I'm just going to ask a question I asked of you yesterday. What I asked you is, I saw a lot of infrastructure grants like water and sewer and stormwater. I saw a lot of that on the list. And my question to you was, are we going for those things without this lobbyist? I mean, have we been going for those things anyway?
Some of them, yes, but certainly not all of them. And not, I think that what a lobbyist will help us with is prioritizing what we should go after, understanding what it is we
That's
need to go
passable.
after. Right, exactly.
Okay.
So generally, no. I mean, the lobbyist will help with that.
Okay, we have no questions, but,
I have questions.
okay, sorry.
So you just may have said it and I didn't quite hear it, but what is the intent of this lobbyist right now? Are we seeking specific issues? As you know, for example, we have Suncoast League of Cities.
Right.
And so I only bring that up because obviously Suncoast League of Cities is not going to go after individual items for a specific city, and we wouldn't ask them to do that. But we can capture certain information if we want to look at something, grants or what's happening. Some cities can have a lobbyist just under contract with them, and they just snoop and poop. Excuse me. They just look around. I don't want to offend Vince in the back there. With snoop and poop. So the others will say, hey, look, we want to get something funded here. We want to see if we can figure out how to either get this put in, because our 120 members are going to be starting, they start in September and of this season, and then our senators will start in October, start laying their stuff out. So do we want somebody that's going to be just kind of watching for us, or are you looking for somebody that's specifically looking for particular projects, or to always be looking for projects, or
Both of those things.
Or what?
Yeah, both of those things. So it's above my delegated authority if it stays at the 60,000. And so what we're looking for right now is for the city commission to approve the funding, and it's in the budget, as I said. And then thereafter, we'd put out an RFP. And really, the scope of what we're looking at is up to us in terms of, we'll tell them what our priorities are. And then this lobbyist would go out and look for grants and that type of a thing, and then dog those grants as they go through the process as well. So it's both ends, really, of the proposal.
So I asked this question, and I brought this up before, and it was just, for me, again, was a very healthy, we have a very healthy budget this year, in my personal opinion.
Yes.
We got $18.3 million in this 2-3 year period that we're spending. We're spending lots of money, and we're looking to bring on new people. And I said, you can't do it all. You got to hold back on something at some point in time. So I'm not sure this is maybe necessarily a good time to do this. I realize they could bring in something or not bring in something. So who's going to facilitate? A lot of these people, when we go to visit them, the legislators, they specifically like to talk to other elected officials. But if you have a person that's under contract, they can be looking for things that we know that we're interested in. So sometimes it works good, and sometimes it doesn't work good.
Right.
So you're thinking of in the category of $60,000?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so before I go to any other comments, can I have a motion to approve the lobbyist position? Do you guys want to have dialogue first? Okay, let's just go for comments. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this was something that I put up that I would cut, and I still feel that way. But I get it. I mean, I actually made a call this morning to my former boss at the county, who was their legislative expert. It was her full-time job, and they also had companies that they worked with. And when I asked her the question about whether she thought it was valuable, she laughed. And then, but she proceeded to talk about the RFP process. She says, have you already gone to RFP? And I think her feeling was so important to, when you do the RFP, how you critique it, what they really did, what was already in the hopper for cities versus something they're trying to take credit for, that they did the, work that didn't really matter later. Depending on what my colleagues want to do, I mean, I'm open to giving this a try. I would love for you to speak to Alithia Stanfield. She still has lots of the lobbyist contacts, knows a lot of the players in the game. I think could add. Sue knows her, Jorge knows her, has just a lot of, friends still in the business and knows the company. So I just think she could give a lot of insight about, excuse my language, but the BS versus what you really get out of it. And that's where, that's been my experience. So I'm just cautious about the dollars. And, but I just want to give that input.
Okay. So you're open to it?
I'm open to it, to give it a shot and see. I absolutely agree, though, with what Commissioner Walker said last meeting, which was, let's make sure we're timing this right, too. That we're not in a point where, we have so many projects on the table, we can't even handle more projects, and then, or we are so close to the legislative session, it's too late anyway. So, and of course, we think we have a little friendly, well, I won't go there. But anyway, the bottom line is, let's make sure we're not spending the money before we really think it has the potential for value. So.
Well, and I would assume that there would be an RFP process.
Yes.
2 or 3 months, and then yada, 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 so.
And regardless of dollars, I would love to see that RFP process will come before us, right? As approval of a contract?
Well, we don't typically bring an RFP before you.
But it could.
It could. I don't want to get in that practice.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough.
Okay.
You can brief us behind the scenes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Walker?
Yeah, so I absolutely, without any hesitation, I won't question the value that a good lobbyist can bring to the city in terms of grant opportunities and shaping opportunities or requirements for future funding. Without a doubt, my concern still resides with the timing of this, because I would say that RFP September. I don't know that this could actually be under contract until literally we're a month from legislative days, in December.
But if I could interject, I mean, I think you have a whole year to do this. And if we determine that this is too late for this season, but there's also committees for next year that will fall into this coming budget year that we're approving.
Yeah, no, absolutely, no. And that was one of the kind of the changes of heart, if you will, in terms of the discussion we had on this last was as well, okay, we're not really, it doesn't necessarily have to be for this legislative session, but this goes back to the RFP process. It wouldn't hurt to, I don't want to, I'm not trying to micromanage the process, but it wouldn't hurt to put a requirement that a respondent has to respond to. Something to the effect, well, if the contract is awarded, let's say, 1st of January, what measure, what would be your first steps in terms of positioning us for the 2025 legislative session? And so I'm not opposed to this. I just want to make sure that, we're going to get the bang for the buck, and that's really my point, so.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Engel?
Oh, thank you. Well, apparently lobbyists work. They're all over Washington and Tallahassee, so. I'm kidding. A little tongue-in-cheek there.
Or they're, well, I won't say it. Or they talk a good game.
And that they do regardless. A lot about being a lobbyist is just that relationship building. And if we're hiring somebody just for this session, I think we're missing the mark. But it's certainly what they can do for it this session, but also how do they catapult that relationship they're starting to build now for at least the next session. What I do like about this is it is a contracted service, so it is something that we should be monitoring. And the moment we really feel that it's not working, we can pull the contract. Thank you for what you've done for us. We're moving on. But to say no to this without really understanding what they can get for us, and I go back to, the one mayor I reached out and it was like, oh my God, now, yes, you do. My only concern is I know a lot of these lobbyists work in groups, right? We can get one that is also a lobbyist for Clearwater, Largo, Seminole, Oldsmar, wherever. What I want is, I don't know that we need specifically our own, but I want to make sure that when that lobbyist is sitting in Senator Hooper's office, that Senator Hooper goes, oh, you're from Dunedin, not who are you for, and I represent an entire list. And I know that's kind of a game you play because we can't certainly afford to have our own, just our own. But I certainly want Dunedin at the top of that. And then just kind of measuring it over time on the value of that. But it's certainly, as we've been talking about this session, it's almost year-round now. And we always feel like we're behind on our own issues. At least I feel that way now. And so the idea that you'll have somebody that's able to knock on their door in June, in July, or whenever that is, in preparing, I certainly is beneficial to the residents of Dunedin. Thank you.
Okay, you said you had a question earlier, but you really more gave your comments. Did you have more comments or before I talk? Or?
I have more comments, yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
I was actually asking her a question. Mm-hmm. So are you suggesting that they don't work? You said.
Oh, no, I'm suggesting we work them very hard.
I'm kidding. You said. Anyway, I don't see a time that's not necessarily good if you want to have a lobbyist. You're going to end up with a lobbyist that handles other clients, obviously, because And you don't have to pay, you may not have to pay 60,000. I mean, you're probably looking for a high side. And it depends on what you want to ask them to do. I think basically they have the relationship. That's why we're hiring them, and they're trying to keep that relationship, and they'll keep their eyes open for us. So for me right now, it was just simply a matter of a financial consideration. Obviously, they could also bring in a lot of money. I mean, we don't know that. Probably won't in the beginning. You never know. Depends on what we need and what we want to spend our money on, particularly if it's a grant. But the legislator they are beginning to work on the projects that they're going to bring forward, and we could do a quick sign up. I mean, that's not the problem. I think the problem is just if we want to spend the time and the money doing that. So we have relationships. Most of us have relationships with legislators up there, and we can be put in touch with those folks rather quickly, and then we can talk to them. Certainly, if it's on anything that they're working on now, they're developing the bills they want. They're going to start working on the bills that they want to put in for the next session. They just got finished. They took the break. Now they're going to start working on it, and boom, it's going to start. Then there's going to be things that are going to show up through somebody else that we weren't even thinking about, and all of a sudden it's there. And if the light goes on for them, they may think of us, and we may add something together. So it's probably worth some money, and I would, if we weren't, and I would absolutely been very positive about it. So I'm not against the concept. I'm just was against the timing of it, but I'm flexible about that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I think giving it a shot is the right thing to do. I think since Jennifer came on board, one of the things we were missing back in the day, under different leadership, was just a focus on the legislative process, on what we need in all different avenues. And I remember in our interviews, and I remember in our reviews, we've said, let's step the legislative process up. I'm saying legislative because it could be lobbyists working with the county, but let's step it all up. We've all stepped it up to the point and degree that we can, okay? But let's face it, these are not full-time jobs we have here, even though we work full-time. You know what I mean? And so you can get a great commission that will do it one time, and then you get a couple new people on the commission, and all they're doing is voting. They're not going out there and lobbying. You can't count on that. And then Jennifer had the wherewithal to bring Nicole in and gave that to be her focus and part of her, a small part of her job. But again, now we're here at sort of a landing post or, a precipice. I look at this conversation that we had earlier today, the 4 projects, and, all the different opinions about them, as well as what if we go over budget in one, and, where we could take the money, and the worry, because, again, it's a snapshot in time. Well, I look at a lobbyist as a return on investment to go get funding for some of these things, or funding for the other things that are in those funds, like Penny, CRA, to reduce the impact. So to me, it's a 60 grand investment that could bring $500,000 in. And so this could be county, this could be state, this could be at the legislature. They are working all year, and even if we don't get somebody on contract until January. And Jennifer, I know in your last 2 cities, you worked with lobbyists, and I know that you know exactly how to make this work. So I'm not going to pepper you with questions about that. I trust that you know what to do. But I can only imagine that in January or February, whenever this person comes in, right, they're not going to be in, they're under contract. I can only imagine, knowing that we haven't had a lobbyist for years, that that person, if it were me, I would want to sit down with the city manager and all the department heads and show me your capital plans, show me what you're working on, look at your long-term, and let me look and see where I think I can get you the biggest bang for your buck over the next year. And let's start working on it. I can imagine that that lobbyist might even say to us as a commissioner, hey, if you're going to Tennessee, or Tallahassee, okay, I need at least one person with me in Tallahassee as a familiar face, but, you know, you can go in one direction, I'll go. I mean, I think there's an advisor perspective as well. And like I said before, we have working department heads, working managers, people doing job and a half. If we really want to get this extra money, I mean, the fact that Clearwater Ferry got $1 million, I'm sorry, they went out and hired a lobbyist. They didn't just go to Senator Hooper. They went out, hired a lobbyist for that one single item. And that was an appropriation, it wasn't a grant. But guess what? It didn't get cut, it didn't get vetoed. And that's part of the thing. It's not just getting it in the budget, it's getting it not to be vetoed. So for 60 grand, I see it nothing but a win-win, a good experiment. If all things being equal, we should be able to relieve our funds so that we can do these projects and, you know, and relieve the water rates. You know, we got an email yesterday about our water and sewer rates. Well, maybe if we get a big appropriation or grant for one of those water projects, maybe we don't have to raise the rates so much. So when I look at 60 grand, I think it's a small amount of money to spend to relieve our budget. If it doesn't work after a year or two, well then, we move on. That's the way I see it. Yes, ma'am.
So, Mayor, if I may, it sounds like we have support for the lobbyists, which we're grateful for, and I don't want to beleaguer yes, you don't get any better than yes, but that said, there's one small component that we're missing here, and that is a lobbyist will also represent what we are opposed to as well in Tallahassee, in terms of, this is a resolution of the city of Dunedin opposing XYZ and home rule. Right,
X, Y,
that
and
type
Z.
of thing. Right,
Protect us
right.
against legislation.
Yes.
Yeah, and because, I mean, like you mentioned, Vice Mayor, the Suncoast League of Cities, as the Florida League of Cities, they all pick their top 4 or 5 things, and that's all you talk about. Well, there may be other things affecting us that aren't mentioned by them, so we can't always count on them. So I agree, and that's a good point. Okay. Can I just have a motion so that we're just consistent?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Walker and Commissioner Gao, any other final comments? Okay, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Torga, Commissioner Franny,
Aye.
Commissioner Gao,
Aye.
Commissioner Walker,
Aye.
Mayor Brzezowski.
Aye, and that motion passes unanimously. Okay, I think we've gotten direction at every agenda item, so I don't think there's anything further. Do you guys need anything else from us?
We do not, thank you very much.
I would like to ask though,
Is that
Jennifer,
for us, actually?
would you, and I know Jennifer's not here, would you provide what, I think it's really important for you to provide the either legal opinion or the law or whatever, if we do not have a supermajority approve our budget. We need to know what happens, the ramifications of that. If you could just give us a memo or email or something.
We'll provide it to you.
Thank you.
this
However
week.
you choose, I don't care. I don't need to know who it comes from. I want to know what the steps are. If we have a 3-2, then what's our next step that we have to do?
Very good. We
And
will
then if
provide
it's a 3-2 again, then what's it, I want to be prepared.
We will provide that.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, guys. Great job. We'll see you in September for budget.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the hard work.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. We're adjourned.
So, Mayor, and everybody here, there's pizza in the Caldisi in the Coral Room.
think I
Pizza and
smell it.
salad. So